It is Thursday, the 29th of February, 2024, and the world is a fucking dumpster fire. Like, I'm already starting with swearing. I've been up again for hours and just going through my social media feeds and my research and some stuff that I've gotten from informants. A mess. So I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to show you my stuff on X. So this is something I reposted yesterday. This is from Greg Wycliffe. I highly recommend people follow him as well if you want Canadian content that's not bought and paid for by the lobbyists and propagandists that are career cabinet and Senate members that have no real life experience or work experience outside of being career cabinet members. Like, again, like not even politicians, just literally people that just like go from like one department to another with actual no expertise or experience and continue to collapse us. And anyway, so Greg Wycliffe, I sympathize with Keenan here, but he's associated with part of the problem, propping up the weak CPC. If Poilievre would have got busy branding Trudeau and his Liberal Party as authoritarian tyrants for the past 2 years, then more Canadians would be primed and ready to lash out against this bill. Instead, he's been busy coddling to the corrupt paid-off media, reducing his message and mission to taxes. PP intentionally choose to ignore every single political prisoner in this country since the trucker convoy, which gives himself much less to work with in fighting against this bill. Worse yet, based on his CPC party's endorsement of C-367 and S-210, members of his party may very well support this bill. So this is Keenan Bext. Again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but like, again, he doesn't get a lot of things right either. So I've been reading about Justin Trudeau's online Hums bill all day. People are not grasping the sheer magnitude and malice of his plan. This law will be Trudeau's final blow when it comes to regulating freedom in Canada. Our history will be remembered as before and after the implementation of this draconian act. He intends to suffocate Canadians who oppose his rule. Hong Kong recently passed laws banning speech disallowed by the government, and a generation of young adults fled. I'm in shock, and I'm forced to consider moving the counter signal and my family out of this country. See, like, this is what I mean. Keenan Bext, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because this is bang on too. Oh, actually, no. I'm not going to add a comment, but yeah, all very true. And there's 338 people in cabinet that are more involved and complicit and friends and family and work together. And again, they all want to keep their jobs within cabinet, even though it's supposed to be a 4-year term, or it should be a 4-year term, working in cabinet as a member of parliament and or Senate. And then if you are in the riding because you've done such a good job in those 4 years, and only then, if you've done such a good job in those 4 years, so like with whatever political party you're aligned with, to be the leader of that party, if and only then, okay, should people be considered to have like another term. All right. And then with that as well, also I'm understanding too that they might not be the political party in power. So the opportunity to be the leader, if as the leader of the political party, they have shown within those 4 years, okay, that they got their shit together enough to be the prime minister, then consider that person for that. So again, there's merit and experience and all of that other stuff that goes along with being the prime minister. And it's not being a part-time drama teacher who's claiming that he has the safety of children in mind when he allegedly impregnated a child, a minor, when he was a part-time drama teacher. So supposed to be the professional, supposed to be the person responsible for teaching children, and instead preyed on multiple children, allegedly, and also having sexual encounters with the mothers as well of the children within the school. So it's not like he's, just like going after one specific group either, or even one specific sex either, allegedly. And don't even get me friggin' started on that as well. Like, oh my friggin' God, it's all coming out though. It's all coming out all over the world, because this corruption has been in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, France, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, okay, Israel, and unfortunately in Palestine, okay, with Abbas, whatever his name is, Mahmoud Abbas, like he's also a corrupted, paid off, bought off politician, leader of Palestine. Do you hear about him in the news? Do you even know who this guy's friggin' name is? Do you know his name? No. But he gets a lot of money for allowing what's happening in Palestine to happen. And just, like, again, I'll just reiterate. the mainstream media is not paying attention to Aaron Bushnell, who is someone that was an Air Force member who heroically gave his life as part of a stance to show like his it was a political it was a stance. It wasn't a political stance. It was a humanitarian stance, just like monks have done as well, by the way. And so like there's like, this is what I mean. It's so fucking hypocritical that just because it's a white young man, okay, that people don't want to prop him up as a hero, and he's a fucking someone that literally sacrificed his life for humanity and to stop a fucking genocide, okay? And the fact that people are just calling him not a hero, or the fact, or not even mentioning the fact that he was serving in the military, in the American military. What the fuck is wrong with people nowadays? And I know I'm swearing a lot. That's off-putting to people. I'm really sorry about that. But there are people online that are very calm when they talk and they don't swear. So like, go to those channels, please. Because like, I can't be perfect. I'm giving people so much information that is so disgustingly morbid and makes it soul crushing to me. And the fact that people are complaining on my channel about my cursing, that like not even caring of the fact that like I have sacrificed my fucking life and my livelihood and all that other stuff, literally to try to help and share this information. And the fact that people are like, oh, you know, like, yeah, like also eat a dick and get off my page. Anyway. Yeah, so if you don't vote for me, it's a hate crime and you will go to prison for life. So like with these bills as well, these people are so insane. I'm just gonna stop with that as well. So insane. And they want to keep their jobs like in cabinet again. Like you're not supposed to have it as a career. Patty Hajdu, Vera Etches, Melanie Jolie, Marco Menoncino, Jim Watson, all you fucking people that literally just want to exploit us for the rest of our lives. Chrystia Freeland and all that other stuff. The reason why there's a surge of illegal immigrants and immigrants coming in from very specific countries is because they know they're going to vote for them. They're literally bringing in voters. And I keep on telling people this, they don't care about Canadians. This cannot be even more clear if you look at the fucking record of illegal immigrants and students here on student visas surging the cities all over the place that are also committing crimes, right? So like students coming in from other countries, let's look at the crime rates as well. Okay, and then the people here on work visas and stuff like that as well. People are bringing them in to do cheaper labor, jobs that people don't want to do in Canada, like the shredding of the trees or the taking over the heritage sites and the churches and the national parks and poisoning the water and the chemtrails and geoengineering and the weather modifications that's going on. So they're hiring people and bringing them in because they don't care about our country, because they're not invested in the country itself, right? Like they're not born here, they weren't raised here. There's no emotional attachment or anything to this country, to the people that they're getting in, even as Interpol and Intermil and COVID teams and stuff like that they're getting to police us, showing us they don't care about us, because crime has increased substantially, even myself being impacted by it. Men in destruction vests that were clearly like immigrants. I don't know if it was legal or not, trying to break into my fucking home. That was pretty terrifying, circling my block for hours. And I was too scared. Not scared, I would say I was too cautious to call the law enforcement that night, even though I let them know in a non-emergency line. I'm like, look, this is happening. I'm like, I have the video of it, the proof, etc. And I shared it on my social media. And I'm like, but I would like to report this and share this information to make sure that it's on the record. So so the next day I had it all recorded because of what happens to people. Like people get baited into calling law enforcement sometimes, or not law enforcement, but like emergency services. And not oftentimes, but sometimes there are actually people that are fake ambulance services or fire or police. They're fake. They're actors. And they, respond to like the Hegelian dialect, the events that they caused, thinking that you would be baited into calling them for their services and then killing them. Because that literally fucking happens, ladies and gentlemen. And look at Anne Hesh, just as an example of footage where it's just known proof, right? Like it was just too obvious. And all the the drone footage and camera footage that came out, it just shows that she was trying to escape the gurney and get out of the bed, like the gurney. And then even with the ambulance, like going past, like it was just all like, again, crazy stuff. But there's so it's for voters, and they're also going to cause like more division within to make it where there might be another emergency act declared because of a false flag event that's going to kill Canadians possibly, or harm us or other people, or put us into a war, or a climate lockdown emergency, in order to, again, further exploit us and distract us and harm us. And with everything that they're doing, right, like they're causing there to be lower fertility rates. Men have much less testosterone than they did even in the 1990s and 80s. Women, again, with the fertility issues and stuff like that, with like all the harmful chemicals and stuff like that that's being pushed, and the birth control pills that are being fucking pushed at an early age, and all the like the woke, grooming stuff that's going on with all the messaging going on all over social media. There's so many psyops propaganda campaigns going on that people wouldn't even believe, and so like this is not helping us. Made in Canada, like we have like the number one made stats in the world, so that's disgusting. That's murder, by the way. Suicides, addictions, obesity, depressions, childhood diabetes, childhood obesity, childhood social issues, anxiety issues, childhood prescriptions all gone up, suicides all gone up. You know what kids didn't die of? COVID. Oh, right, but Bonnie Henry or Dina Hinshaw, those morons, by the way, government, and look at how much they get paid, and that's why they keep on going into other freaking departments getting our money, okay? They need to be fired and start working in places where they're not impacting people or leading anyone. McDonald's, I've worked at McDonald's, they're not even qualified for that, but like get the fuck out of government jobs. People, they need to be dishonorably discharged, just like the fucking thousands of people that were actually way better than them at their jobs that they pushed out and cast aside with the Gestapo help, because they didn't want to abide by WEF and the World Health Organization and Bill Gates' agenda, because they're not retarded. So yeah, people are going to do things just to get it where there's no elections, because like these leftist extremists, not liberals or Democrats, leftist extremists and rightist extremists, right? Like left and right, same bird. Even in the US, Trump is not the answer either. I know that's not popular, but a guy, I've shared, and maybe I will share it further if I even have it. But he was pushing Space Force, and he's the one that implemented it, and he's the one that was pushing the vaccine, rushing it out to be approved and authorized, and there's so much more. He's on the friggin' list. He was with Epstein and Maxwell even in the friggin' 90s, okay? And he's repeatedly cheated on his wife. And I know men, conservative men, leftist men, like I know you guys don't care, but as a woman who has been cheated on and actually divorced because of it, or separated because of repeatedly getting cheated on, you know how much that fucking hurts women? Okay, that's not showing us that you're the provider and the protector. And when you're in government or seen as an expert, the world, you know what I mean? It's like that's even more traumatic for women, and it is what it is. But it's just so frustrating that and to try to like make it where women are subservient to men still, to me, blows my mind. And I'm going on all these tangents, but people think that Trump is the answer or Pierre Poilievre is the answer when they've repeatedly shown us, they've repeatedly shown us that they are not it. They are not it, right? They're not the answer. And I don't know. I don't even know. So I was going to share the video, like, of pointing out like all of these things that Trump has done throughout his presidency, by the way. So like not any other time. He had 4 years to unfuck things. And what did he do? He locked people down. He forced people to get vaccinated. Rushed the approvals internationally. So he literally impacted people all over the fucking world. And you're seeing now, they're saying how many millions of people died possibly because of the vaccine? Not possibly. Like it's the strong arguments. I have to say allegedly because I'm on YouTube. 17 million. And then I've showed the reports just coming from Pfizer alone, right, about the VAERS, even as early as February of 2021, they knew. And I was sharing all of this information, and I have the sent messages to prove it to all levels of government and cabinet, and not one fucking response back from anyone, even though I got the acknowledgement that the email was submitted and received, and phone calls talking to people saying they would get back to me. All of this stuff, not once getting back to me. But I'm hoping this is the year they finally get jailed and investigated and fired, because I know people that, like Helen Gruce and people I can't name yet because they're fighting this in the courts. But the data that we were giving, Wayne Eyre needs jail. Anyways, I'm gonna keep on going down the list here. Sorry. I know like this is a vent, but like I cry so much, honestly, as a woman. This is stuff that is really hard and soul crushing. And to still get people that are so fucking ignorant. It just it's frustrating. Especially when it's men in government, because like I feel like you let us down so much that it's heartbreaking. And cabinet, it's so heartbreaking. Yeah, and I tag people too. So I this is regarding this post here. No, you can't see it. ArriveCam. ArriveScam, ArriveCan app. There's even more information coming out with it. Like $250 million to 4 guys in a cabin in the woods that are already millionaires, by the way, and or well connected, obviously, and that DND was also involved in it. Let me go up here. Why is it like there's a lot of things that are not being shown on my friggin' Twitter, which I'm really annoyed about. I'm so shadow banned. But I know I shared it. Yeah. Let me see here. Yeah, that was sad too. So exactly 31 years ago, the ATF and the FBI massacred 76 Americans. Take a look at that. This was in Waco, Texas. That whole like HIV man that they're allowing to identify as a woman and as a someone that's 20 years younger than he actually is, HIV and doing like the friggin' chemical fluid through his nipple fucking stuff to traumatize a child. Like I don't know how else to explain it, but it was Canada. It's Canada. Of course it's fucking Canada, and of course it's Ontario. Of course it's the fucking province I'm in. That's why I'm swearing about this. It's so gross. Goldfeld, or whatever the friggin' name of the company is, and then Tim Pool. People think that Tim Pool is like a smart guy that like to follow or whatever. He's a shill. He's controlled up whether he knows it or not. And he's even in the last 12 hours. Like he literally still thinks that the moon landings happened, and literally everyone in the world at the higher fucking levels, by the way, hate to break it to people, like it's common knowledge now, and it has been for at least 5 years. It's common knowledge now. So anyone that's still believing in Santa Claus and all that other stuff, like I hate to break it to you, but they have repeatedly been debunked. I've shared the proof. Look at my videos. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people have as well. And if you're too lazy to look at the data, at the proof, at the evidence, like I'm sorry, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And Tim Pool and Matt Walsh and these people that are still literally in 2024, like saying that the moon landing happened. This is where you need to block them and unfollow, because they are clearly not good at their jobs. Clearly, at best, they're just shitty at their jobs. And that's it. And so that enough is to make should be enough to make them lose credibility. Oh yeah, the Georgia Guidestones as well. And I was speaking about the Georgia Guidestones, like I had just spoke about them the day before, or anyways, it's on the record. And I was saying about them, and then within days of that, like it blew up, and then it was a 3:33 a.m. or 3:32 or 3:32, I forgot what it was. But anyways, it was specifically 2 when like the freaking explosion hit, and again, this was obviously an inside job because they were trying to stop showing like obviously the astronomical piece, right, where you had that like hole like in the friggin' look at the stone where you could see Polaris, and anyway, it's just so obvious that yeah, in plain sight. Yeah, so I knew there was a 33 in there. But yeah, this is just in plain sight. In freaking plain sight, guys. And even with the 3, like I said yesterday as well, like these are all just like symbolic, symbols, like symbolic symbols, but that's redundant. But even with that, that's like the cycloid path or whatever that the moon takes, right? Like through the sky, and what like Venus and other like luminaries, like the flight path path that they make. And then this, the sun makes the sine wave. We talked about the 6 and the 9, obviously. The 7 obviously has to do with like the Big Dipper and Polaris as well, where like with the Big Dipper, where it is in the sky during the equinoxes and the solstices, it shows you that swastika, or whatever you want to call it, symbol in the sky, right? Like, and so like that's also like more symbology, I think, also like the 7 representing the Big Dipper, but also 7 is also sacred, right? With the 7 chakras, the 7 like major colors and tones and luminaries and friggin' noble God, you name it. Like there's so much to do with that and the connection with 12. I go on all these rants or tangents. It's also good, because it distracts me from like putting myself in a tunnel, like tunneling into like negativity. Like it's a good break. Yeah, I don't think that Pierre Poilievre's the answer. I don't think Justin Trudeau's the answer. I don't think any of them are. I don't think Kamala Harris is the answer. I think it's important that people do get online and try to spread awareness to people, because like the time has. I know people are saying that like like if there's no point, like if people if they're going to be awake, they would have been awake by now. I don't think that that's necessarily true either, because even this morning I had people who for years now have been like dismissing the flat earth like possibility, and even this morning like someone like reached out in a non-confrontational way, which I appreciate, and was just like, why do you believe the earth is flat? And so like that was literally just a non-confrontational question, and so I actually took the time to answer it. When you just call people idiots and just say like Earth is a globe, and like you're not leaving the dialogue. There's no dialogue there, right? There's no discussion to be had, and it's unfortunate that people that don't even know like the information on their own model, that they're actually slamming people like me as well, right? So what I've done as well, like because it's the pushback is on me, and I'm like, well, how far is the sun from us? How far is the moon from us? How fast are we spinning? How fast? Through the universe, like you ask basic common questions that people should know, even the Earth curve calculator, and they have no idea. They had literally no idea about anything. You if you even ask them what color the luminaries are, that's why they don't even know their own models. And so that's the good question, because then you're putting them on the spot too, right? Because we get put on the spot a lot, flat earthers, all the friggin' time, to say the least. Obviously, even people getting murdered. And anyway, I won't get into that, but we know our work. We know our work. This is from Spacebusters. In all thy getting, get thee knowledge with Steve Falconer. He also is brilliant, by the way. We don't align on certain things, on a few little things. But there's a lot of stuff that like he and I definitely are on this freaking same page about. So like I find him interesting, and he's value added.
Because it's an anarchy convention, and you have to say, well, archon means ruler. So what are these archons? Like if you're an anarchist, you're against the rulers, not rules. It doesn't mean doesn't mean without rules. It means without rulers. And so I thought, well, here we are, a bunch of anarchists.
Yeah, and people saying that, like anyone that's speaking out against Pierre or Trudeau, saying that we're anti-government. What are you talking about? I keep saying that I am fucking government. I've 23 years, 15 years as an infantry officer, including being in the special forces, deployments, etc., and then incorporating and working with the highest levels of government in order to train people at the highest levels to respond to events internationally, natural and man-made disasters, essentially. And I don't even know where I was going with that. I just get so fucking fired up sometimes. And
because how can you be an anarchist if you don't know?
Oh yeah, and so like I'm trying to inform people that I'm working with, that I've worked with, that I've deployed with, and or people that are going to be deploying in real life situations, and I'm trying to give them the most accurate, up to date information because I want to help them. I want to help. This information is important. It helps avoid harm and suffering of human beings and everything else, right? And including like even with the explosions, this is causing pollution. And this is a contained environment, so it's not leaving the fucking atmosphere. And trees filter this. I will reiterate, filter this like the pollution and stuff like that. So, and And then there's people that I know in government, you know, like Helen Bruce and countless others that are trying to keep their jobs and getting potentially charged because of sharing medical, scientific, and government data to Gestapo Nazi types that showed us how exactly who they were during lockdowns and everything like that, and instead suspended her, charged her. It's been over 2 years now. She's in the courts, even though she had over 20 years of service as a Ottawa police detective, working with SACA for over 7 years at that time, sexual assault, child abuse unit. So there was a lot of sudden infant deaths during the time that the vaccine rollout was happening. And she was investigating it. And there was zero issues with what she was doing. Again, she all her performance reports, like, take a look at them. Like, this girl with bar none, again, like an incredible detective and someone who I also worked with on higher level contracts and hired to train the highest levels of government to respond to natural and man-made disasters because of her skill sets and her abilities and stuff like that, and reputation. And so the fact that she's going through this over $100,000 in debt, even though she's a mother as well, and a wife, and this is so much stress and it's overwhelming, and like might lose her pension, all of this stuff, and like there's no support either from people within government because she's in Ottawa and it's a fucking swamp of leftists, and even the men that are voting conservative and putting on their construction vests and working with Taggart, they're destroying our fucking city. They're not the good guys. I wish they would get another job that actually helped, right? Mr. Freedom BDR, like, he's a roofer. He looks like he makes a lot of friggin' money. He's more than just a roofer too, I think. But he's building and renovating and doing repairs for homes that need it. You know what I mean? And working his ass off still, even though like he's like huge on social media, and I'm sure would be able to get people friggin' jobs. All right, and he's also fucking completely aware of what's going on in the world, and so he's not going to be the type that is going to be duped into like destroying fucking churches. Even though he might not even be religious, like people are like classifying religion, he's not going to be the type that's going to damage a mosque or a church, Christian church, or a Greek Orthodox church, or any of those buildings, right? Jewish buildings, not going to do it because he knows that this is not even like, people are saying that the tiny hats are responsible for this shit. Even Jordan Maxwell was saying decades ago that it's not who you think it is, and Jewish people are getting blamed and being held responsible for things that they're not planning or responsible for. And then he's going to talk about this stuff, but yes, there's involvement by some people that are, but they're not really religious, right? They're hiding behind religious groups in order to push an agenda. And I've even said this with Adolf Hitler. He was not religious, and people that he had go into high-ranking religious churches and institutions, these were also people on the record writing back and forth and stuff like that. They were not religious people. They were exploiting people while they were working there, and they were getting people to confess to them. And they were giving them all the fucking news, right? These were literal informants for so many years, and people are still doing confessions and stuff like that to literal spies. And anyway, more tangents.
What the archons are. And there are a lot of funny stories going around from people like David Lamb Lash and David.
Hear those. Hey, Steve, Mike's going to do a real quick intro, and then we're just get. No, that's I interrupted the whole thing, not you there. So, Mike, go ahead, finish that, and then we'll just launch.
Yeah, while vast swaths of humanity are presently waiting for the other proverbial shoe to drop on any number of socioeconomic fronts, we're staying the course with our guests and subject matter that the spellcasters would rather remain occulted. Political drama, pending wars, and fake epidemics aside, wouldn't it be more fruitful to understand our authentic origins upon this plane?
Yep.
Perhaps solution lies in what's been hidden. And what if a true historical accounting revealed...
Sorry, before I get into it, because for some reason it wasn't sharing on my Twitter feed, but D&D suspends contracts with ArriveCan contractor after learning CEO is a D&D employee. So I posted that and I said, yep. And will this person get jail? Will this person be dishonorably discharged? Like the thousands of people who got released, harassed, left, or leaving because of how woke and criminal the Canadian Armed Forces is now? Wayne Eyre also needs jail. How does he not know this? How did he not know the scandemic was coming? How did he not see the hospital numbers go through the roof after vaccine rollouts? How does he not know where there is weather modification dispersing materials within Canadian airspace. How does he not know the real events that happened in Ukraine, Palestine, Afghanistan, or any other false flag staged and planned event? He isn't even qualified or knowledgeable enough to work at McDonald's, yet he's the CDS, which is the Chief of Defense Staff. So like, the Chief of Defense Staff should know what's going on at home and abroad. We should be on the same page as this. And like I said, he was getting his intel, and CSIS was getting their intel from Justin Ling, Alice Hines from Vice News, and also affiliated with CBC. So I can't even make this up. Like, I literally showed the proof. I even showed the access to information request that came out that showed the summary assessments, the threat assessments and stuff like that, and what the CSIS fucking made fucking person, what they used as their evidence was articles from Justin Ling. Does he have a security clearance? No. Did he ever work in the military? No. Did he ever work in security and defense? No. Did he ever work at like, any fucking job relevant to this numbnuts being used as a counter terrorist key advisor? No. Nope. And ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea how many, even the people that people watching my channel obviously do know, because like I'm so shadow banned. The fact that you're even on this, watching this, like, is because you specifically would have had to like know my work in advance.
Historical eras in which mankind actually had its act together. On this AlphaCast installment, we continue this investigative thread with author and filmmaker Steve Falconer. Steve is a prolific political commentator and the voice of Space Busters on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and Vigilante.tv. He is also the author of the children's book, The Dukes of Dents, available on all Amazon platforms, and a former writer and administrator for Truth Serum News, where he wrote under the pen name Are You Sure?
And here at Alpha Vedic, we really like to get into all of that because we believe awareness is the cure.
Years of research. Some of this could be correct, some could be incorrect. I will tell you when I can when I can say what's fact and what is not. And if you're of a, let's call it a religious upbringing, by the way, I come from two huge Roman Catholic families, right? So people are going to be like, is he a Jew? No, no, I'm not a Jew. And I'm not a Roman Catholic either. But this can be very upsetting, what I'm going to show you. But my hope is that pennies are going to be dropping like a cheap Vegas slot machine here. People are like, who's in charge of this place? What's going on? And I think when you start to see what we're going to talk about today, a lot of puzzle pieces are going to fall in place. So I'll share my screen here. And here we go. And then I think it's this. There we go. All right. Here we go. So I'm going to just pause that. So you can see that great, right? So one of the stories going around, it comes from a guy called John Lamb Lash about the archons and the interdimensional beings or demons. And David Icke has the Saturn moon matrix, where the archons are ruling us with machines from Saturn to the moon. But really, when you look up in the sky, you see what's called the Royal Arch of Freemasonry, which is the sun and the planets in the summer sky in the summer when the sun's at its height, and then it goes down in the winter. You can see that at the top of the screen. And these coincide with the parts of our body, which you and Amanda and I talked about before. Now, in this Royal Arch or arc, are what they call the sun and
right from the get-go, like this is not in the right order and stuff like that. And don't take the baby out with the bathwater. Even with this, like the stuff that he's sharing regarding like the Freemasonry occult symbology, also within that, there's like deceit within, and it also says in some works that I can possibly show, but even like real eyes, and then those who know can see beyond like the symbols and see the like that even the more you know that you would know that there's like some incorrect information also being shown intentionally to confuse people at the lower levels of the Freemasonry cult or organization, whatever you want to call it. As well, there's hierarchies within, and not everyone, even within Freemasonry, knows are taught. They're not taught the true reality, right? And so, like even looking at the Freemasonry books, unless you're fully versed in the occult, in astrotheosophy, like you should be looking at these books, you know, to add value or remove value from like whatever you anyway, and you should be able to discern what is correct and incorrect from within before you look at it. So even with Chat GPT, I was already well versed in astronomical mathematics and the Earth curve calculator and the calculations, like the results that would be received before I started talking with Chat GPT, because Chat GPT is an AI that's not perfect. It's been provided with coding and information from someone, a human or humans, and so like that's the only experience of coding it has or knows, right? And so I hope that makes sense. And so I was continually correcting Chat GPT, and to this day I do, because and then it corrects itself, right? Like I break things down, like, oh, sorry, you're right, you're correct. Thank you for your patience. I've showed that. And so yeah, even with Chat GPT, it's another thing. Like don't like that could like it could form another cult.
Moon and 5 of, I know there are Pluto and Neptune. There
people are coming up to me like Chat GPT said this. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what Chat GPT said. Like, show me other references.
Other planets. They are the archons, the 7 archons or lights. And in the ancient teachings, they build, vest, and influence the mind, soul, the body as spirit as it precipitates and comes into physical form. We know this because we know that the police stations and the hospitals are full on a full moon. We know when there's a full moon, people go a little crazy or become lunatics, right? And we also know when you're feeling very bad and then you go to a sunny place, you start to feel better. So it's obvious that these lights, whatever they are, have effect on us. Now, on the left here, people who are into the chakras and astrology, they're going to say, wait, Steve, you have these in the wrong order. And I'm aware of that. I understand. But when you take these planets or stars in the order of closest to the Earth and farther out, a very strange thing happens here. You get Saturn, which is Kronos, which means crown, right? Kronos is the keeper of time. Well, that's your crown chakra, right? It's the
that I don't believe in.
He's the keeper of time. It's physicality. There is no.
See, this is where he and I like. That's where I like for him and me like way off. And even saying like even with menstrual, like the moon, that's why it's red. Like that. Like you're just like again, it's reaching. It's a red herring. Like yes, blood is red, but that's not a reason to associate a whole ass entire fucking luminary over it, because that makes no sense. And so the crown chakra is the 7th chakra. It's friggin' the sun. Okay, crown chakra, like and the root chakra is Saturn and correlated with red, and so like again, I'm not fully I'm not on board at all with this at all. Not at all.
In spiritless white.
So it'd be Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And as above, so below. So like again, this could be inverted as well, especially if this is reflection. So like rainbow colors, like and also like the color around, like the border also matters.
Non-physical existence. And down at the bottom, if you get rid of Mars and put the moon in, which is where we get the word menes or menstrual or red.
And the reason why we called our periods like menstrual cycles is because of the moon. So like I'm not dismissing that at all. But even with the seed, like that protein seed that's created possibly when the like the sun goes through our moon sign. Sorry, when the moon goes through our sun sign, that also could like it's something like that's correlated with like the influence of the luminaries. And but that these are all just like words, like from like these are all just words. And connections that we made with the luminaries, like to make up words, and there's different languages, and anyway, and so don't just go verbatim like and just think that anyway.
Or where creation comes from.
I need coffee.
Now you start to get what you could call the real Saturn Moon matrix, which is us, spirit, stuck in a physical form here on Earth to learn and overcome so that we can build our spirit back up and return. This is a lot different than what John Lamb Lash and David Icke are presenting. And I'm not saying they're wrong or this is right. I'm just saying this is very interesting. And then you can see all the planets and the sun, and the moon and the 5 planets, they correspond to the alchemical metals, as you were talking about, Bear. These aren't actual metals. These are the alchemical. And they correspond with the 7 days of the week. And we get the 7 colors of the rainbow. And we get all these sevens, and sevens. Now, what's interesting, we're in the way in the top right. But here's some Masonic artwork. And you see where the red is in the middle. You see 2 pyramids, one pointing up, which is your upper chakras and the upper torso, and one pointing down, which is the lower chakras.
And yesterday's video, I showed sacred shapes and polynomials and stuff like that. And so like that's also what I believe to be like the representation of these shapes is based on like these divine polynomials that make up this dimension, that make up this cosmos.
Lower torso. Now you have the moon. If the symbol on the right, you have the moon on top, which is the mind or magnetism. You have the sun, which is the soul or the spirit. And then you have the earth or body. And that is the alchemical sign for Mercury. If you see down here, and the Freemason.
If anyone could give me any like alternate viewpoints on this, but like I do believe to be the sun to be a magnetic radiating energy, and the moon to be a gravitational cooling energy, whatever you want to call it, electrical. So you've got the electrical magnetic, but I don't know. I'd be interested in people's thoughts on that, because I don't know why people keep on saying that. Like, I don't know. I'm really interested in people's link with that. It doesn't.
Masons have it drawn in there. You can see it in the lower part. And Mercury is the messenger of the gods, which is Quicksilver, the other name for the cerebrospinal fluid, which Bear, you and I talked about with Amanda, which rises up your Kundalini, right? And opens up the Christos. So it's pretty amazing that is the alchemical symbol for Mercury or Quicksilver. And then again, you start looking at the Jewish menorah here with the seven candles or the 7 lights. And then we start looking at the biblical Elohim, right? And the Elohim say, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Now, people say, well, Elohim is plural, so the gods are aliens, and the aliens made us in their image and genetically manipulated us. Well, another way to look at it is the Elohim are these planets and stars that are affecting us and building us. So we are made actually in the image of these planets and the sun and the moon, which are affecting us, which is astrology, which is not Mystic Meg. Astrology is a very ancient science. It's not BS. It's real. We know it affects us. Now, I had a fun talk with Matt Presti here because he disagrees with this because of Walter Russell science. But in the old Masonic teachings, low vibrating light turns into matter, high vibrating light turns into spirit. Now, Matt's saying it's the other way around. He's saying the white light of God is actually the lower vibration, right? He's saying earthquakes and the.
Okay, so I just went on a random rabbit hole. So just like going regarding like silver and gold, because I do believe that those are the precious, well, the elements that are so precious metals, but elements that are correlated with the sun and the moon, and not being magnetic and or conducting it and being able to detect the electricity within these elements by using metal detectors and stuff like that as well. And so, but that can they be magnetized? And things like pure gold is not magnetic, but gold alloys that contain iron, cobalt, or nickel can be magnetic. And so when I look at here, what's iron in here, we could see that Mars is correlated with iron as well. That's a very interesting thing. So anyway, and it is not the gold that is creating magnetism, but the other magnetic metal mixed in the composition, i.e. iron or nickel. Metallic gold has no unpaired electrons, and it does not display classical magnetism. The magnetism of materials can be grouped into 3 primary categories. Therefore, it is safe to say that for practical purposes, that no, gold is not magnetic. Can it be magnetized without, putting in those other elements? Can it be, who knows? Let's go back. Let's go to silver. Can silver? be magnetized. Summarizer. And again, this is from ChatGPT likely. So again, like I'm going to do more research into this, but like this is just interesting. So pure silver is not magnetic and falls into the category of diamagnetic material. So I'm going to say like probably electric. Anyway, sterling silver is an alloy consisting of 92.5 silver with the remaining 7.5 being either copper or nickel. If nickel is used as an alloying metal, it will make the silver slightly magnetic. Sterling silver might have a weak magnetic interaction, but it should not stick to a magnet. Silver cannot be magnetized, nor can it be turned into an electromagnet. So silver cannot be magnetized, nor can it be turned into an electromagnet. That's very interesting as well. So there's within like the moon as well, there would have to be some type of other element. And I'm saying that these elements and these materials, these molecules, these whatever you want to call them, these are all within this cosmos. There's nothing beyond this realm within the coding, within this design that transcends this cosmos. And so even with Super Mario Bros, right? Like there's no adding in coding. There's, unless you are the computer programmer that created the game and or like hired someone to make amendments, but that's just an entirely new game, right? Like there's new versions of games that come out to make upgrades or updates or make new features or new lands to conquer or whatever. And so the same applies to this cosmos as well. There could be multiple different things happening beyond this realm, right? But just like, like the dot doesn't experience what the line experiences, what the three-dimensional, being experiences, what the four-dimensional being experiences. It's just, facts. Yeah, facts. So yeah, like looking at sonoluminescence, looking at the elements that are associated with the original luminaries, and seeing them in their various forms and states, and doing measurements and testing on the various forms and states, using various different materials and testing equipment, using electricity, magnetism, like the elements in gas form, in degassed form, in fluid and solid form, etc. And that will further expand on the knowledge that's already coming out. And I will say again as well, like repeating that, like this year alone, like there's more people that are waking up. And so like the people that are saying like there's no hope for waking people up anymore, they've been trying for years. I get your frustration. I totally get it, especially the people that have been at this for 10 years, like Mark Sargent and Eric Dubé. I totally get your frustration because like I've only been doing this for like half that time, and it's soul crushing. It honestly is. And but I think this year more people are open to exploring because they're seeing just how ridiculous education systems are now. They're seeing how ridiculous like these institutions are, like cabinet and Senate, and when they're hearing these people talk, right, like they're like they know. And even with even with the View, Canadian equivalent of the View is the Social. We have morons also, like women that are not educated at all. They have zero life experience that are on the show, just like the View, and no idea what's going on in the world, right? And so like Dr. Phil went on the show, and again, like he's probably controlled up as well to varying degrees, and I am anyway, I'll leave it at that. But like he did destroy their arguments, and it was so nice to see like him just like embarrass Whoopi Goldberg, and even the audience was clapping when he was talking, because like even the audience knows that like some people just go to the show for entertainment, right, or just to say they friggin' did it, or to meet Whoopi Goldberg or Joy, like whatever, because like because they're comedians, or because like they like the movie Ghost or other movies that she was in, and they just want for whatever reason. But like if people think that they're actually thinking these people are smart, no.
The sun and all.
The people that need to wake up, unfortunately, are the people that are in these positions and the elitist class. Like they're the ones that need to wake up. Everyone else, pretty much for the large part, is woken up. I've said, like I've done volunteer work at the homeless shelters here in Ottawa for a number of years, including being a facilitator for like a Discovery University is what they call it, but there's homeless people and or transient where they're able to get university courses and or like have like these courses like for an entire semester, and you have it's run through Ottawa University, and so they can attend classes and stuff like that and get these credits, and then once a week, like I would have like a sit down with like a group, and then there'd be questions asked, and we would discuss things, and very critical thinking. Like I wasn't just pushing the woke agenda at all, which is why this year I wasn't invited back yet. Because I was also saying that they shouldn't be like forcing people to get inoculated and stuff like that in order to get food. Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you just work here. I'm like, this, like, you're getting paid shit money too. Like, why are you enforcing ridiculous mandates and measures that like it can cause harm to like a significant portion of this population? And it was these Karens, again, like a 20-something-year-old girl with like friggin' fake eyelashes this friggin' big at the Ottawa Mission, no offense, with fake hair, like overly processed, overly friggin' dyed, and like overweight. And she's the one that like was, again, responsible for the management about all this stuff. And like, even with the Freedom Convoy, like not realizing that like what she thought was happening with homeless people was not. I'm like, you guys, anyway, I can go on all these friggin' tangents.
Well, the higher vibrations would be the opposite, but I'm saying that without the sun, we'd all be dead. It's making everything grow. So that's just quite interesting. But a guy called Paris.
Yesterday, it was insane. There was a lot of wind and there was a lot of rain, and so luckily I took my dogs out on a nice long. I did a run instead of a bike ride because I like to switch it up. And so, well, it was a walk run. Okay, I got to calm it down a little bit. I'm not going to exaggerate that. and like over hills and stuff like that. And so we went out when the sun was out, and then with it by 11 a.m. I was back in the office and cloud coverage. But that's also the molecules or the particles that they're releasing in the atmosphere. It's causing cloud coverage. It's causing rain, snow, all of that shit. And Wayne Eyre, our chief defense staff, and Brenda Lucky, I don't know who it is now, but like who was the head of the RCMP, and like every friggin' member of cabinet who should know what's going on, they're not aware of what's going on. Yeah, so like I just hope that people peacefully call these people's offices, flood their emails peacefully, and with the protests, like internationally as well. Like I might as well talk about that as well. It's not working and it won't work, and you're literally just further lining the pockets of the people that are in. And causing destruction, right? So like there's people putting down like trees. That annoys me because like why are you shredding trees to like block roads? Like do something else, like manure and like other things. But like this is not helping, right? Like so these people, instead of lashing out in causing destruction, I'll reiterate, right? Like, and so like I fully I want to speak on behalf of farmers and people within rural areas. And I understand where they're coming from, even with the Freedom Convoy, but it's just not something that helps anyone. And these are false flag events. These are staged and planned. And there's even embeds from all government and crisis actors, like people that government don't even know are crisis actors because they're like, anyway, because like they're really not read in with anything now. But yeah. The premiers as well. Even Doug Ford, like how was he not arrested yet? This pig of a man. Morbidly obese premier. So again, like this is like you should be having physical fitness standards to be in these jobs as well, not just cognitive. And there's no cognitive tests done as well for these people to be in these jobs where they're literally ruling over our lives. And so I'm for government. I've said that my whole life. I'm a libertarian more, and I do believe that it should be smaller and not so insane. And I believe in freedom of speech, obviously, because there's already rules in place that penalize and punish offenders and criminals. And so we're just censoring the truth now, and especially in Canada, and it's getting a lot worse. And because people within government are they're not wanting, or they're demoralized because for years they've tried to speak out and they just give up because things are getting worse. And so yeah, they don't want to rock the boat, but like you need to rock the boat within. Like if you are being paid by Canadian taxpayers to serve and protect or defend or do the Hippocratic Oath or whatever, then you should be speaking out on things that are clearly causing harm and death within your own country. Like I just it's full stop. RCMP are finally investigating the ArriveCan scandal, but there's a lot of other stuff they need to investigate, right? They need to stop, like law enforcement here in Canada, they need to stop focusing on speed traps, okay? Try to catch people going like 10 kilometers over the fucking speed limit. And maybe focus on getting rid of the fucking pedophiles and drug traffickers The people that are actually killing people and destroying our fucking world? Maybe.
Celsius.
Maybe get our military guys at the higher end to fucking start speaking out more on what they know.
He said, know that the philosopher has power over the stars and not the stars over him. Now, I don't say philosopher like to be or not to be. I put in the word astrologer. Know that the astrologer has power over the stars, meaning anarchy is astrology. It's learning how these archons or lights in the heavens affect us and then deciding by free will to act differently. Right? I'm a Virgo. I get triggered really easily. I have to be right all the time. And
this is where he's assigning roles to himself based on what the literature that he's read. And so that's why I say literally perception is reality in this video game, whatever this is. And these analogs that are being created and stuff like that, it's literally based on what we're the content that we're perceiving by all of our senses and stuff like that, but through the mind.
I know that now, so I don't have to have an argument with somebody. I know that I have to get the last word. And so now I get the choice. Do I waste all my energy arguing to death or do I shut up? Right? So I think this is very important. Now, we get all these weird things in religion, these 7 archons or lights. We get this religious idea of the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony. I love gluttony. You know, I like my drink and smoke. I'm a rock and roll musician. But then on the other side, you get what you call the 7 heavenly virtues, which I think is alchemy. I think it's a matter of
So people know my interpretation of like Jesus and Satan. So I think that Satan's a representation of Aquarius and Capricorn, and with Saturn, and that Jesus is a representation of the sun. And the 7 virtues and the 7 sins, like I've talked about that as well. I believe that either extreme is not good. And I'll reiterate that either too much love, too much, without reaching that balance is also not good, right? Because you can love people blindly who are criminals, right? And fully support blindly everything that they do that's criminal, like a friggin' sociopath, just because I love them. Anyway, and so balance, right? So he's saying that he likes to get a smoke and drink on and stuff like that. Like if he's doing it in moderation or balance, who the fuck cares? Like who cares? Seriously, who is he harming in that? Who is he harming? You know, himself a little bit, obviously, unless like he does things to like balance out, like doesn't drink too much or doesn't smoke too much. Or if he does that, then like lead a healthier lifestyle, you know, like just add in, an apple a day or an orange, maybe get some micronutrients in there, some bone broth or some hydrolyzed collagen added in there with some, I don't know.
A person transmuting these lower chakra desires and wants and needs, right? The physical pleasures of this realm. To say, well, I don't need to do that. I can try to transmute this into a higher way of being where I'm quite happy with more of a spiritual existence here. And I won't have to go through them all. And feel free to jump in anytime you want.
Well, I was going to say,
have anything to add to that? Yeah.
Well, Matt Presti's in the chat right now, and just
excellent.
Clarify,
Hey, Matt.
He said there are no vibrations to the spirit whatsoever via Walter Russell. So you get closer to spirit by lowering, not raising your vibrations. The idea that it's just still white light.
Yeah, and so that's why even with Walter Russell's, not like I don't agree with everything he says either.
So there is that for Walter Russell, God, mind, it's just stillness. It's just the all-present, omniscient, omnipresent white light.
Just a quick comment. Having been a longtime Walter Russell student myself, I agree that pure consciousness, or what we think of as God, is stillness. And the way Walter explains and really demonstrates, not just theoretically, that idea or any such thing from a consciousness that's capable of idea creates the vibration, and then within that vibrational realm with Walter Russell's mechanics. Now I'm kind of a bit of a heretic with Walter Russell work also, because I believe some of the things that people do not believe that Walter Russell had it right. From my thinking, I can take his teachings and explain what they think is right too. So I think there definitely has to be more of a reintegration so that we can get around the semantics and understand what we're really talking about. And also, last thing said is anybody that left some breadcrumbs for us, whether it's Russell or Steiner or so forth, it's really incumbent upon the next generation to take it further. And no true trailblazer is going to say, hey, it stops here, and everybody, after me is not going to be able to take this, to the next level of understanding. So now I have no problem, coinciding different theoretical constructs of the nature of our Earth realm that Walter Russell may not agree with. The fact that even individuals themselves go through an alchemical process through embodiments and within individual embodiments in order to achieve the so-called ascended state. Walter Russell would say there's no such thing as ascended masters. Well, again, I think if we could have a discussion, get around the semantics of just some simple statements that were put out a while ago, we could honor what Walter Russell, was teaching without bastardizing those teachings, and then also explain some of the other things that people are just now starting to connect the dots with, including the fact that the spinning ball theories and all that kind of stuff is just, really a bunch of nonsense and could be very eloquently, explained within the realm of waveform mechanics.
Yeah, I think it's what you just said is so vital, Bear. Walter Russell, way smarter than even 1/10 of my intelligence, But again, what I'm presenting here, I'm not saying this is the truth, and I'm not saying that Walter Russell had everything right either. I think you're right. We need to start syncretizing everything together and say, is it possible? Some of this is right, some is wrong. Can we marry these together? People like Santos Bonacci has married Russellian, I don't think that's a real term, but Walter Russell's work with the flat earth model. So again, this is just to get our brains kind of moving and let people, like you say, the next generation learn all sides of this and see if there's something else we haven't come up with yet. Right. So,
yeah. And we're not, like you said earlier, we're not saying right or wrong. And, then we also, I think, would do better refraining from simplification terminologies like flat earther and so forth, because just because we've been lied to about a spinning ball, I mean, obviously anybody with any intelligence can see the flaws a mile away. But then at the other time, we don't just automatically revert to a simplistic flat earth theory either, because we live in a functional realm. And Walter Russell really explained best of anybody that I know of how that thing functions in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, after talking to Matt later, coming up soon, I'm going to put some Walter Russell in here. So I've done a little syncretizing myself and Matt's amazing. I love him. So we've all seen this before. We've seen the ancient Celtic cross, they call it. And you've got the circle with a T-shaped cross. Now, anyone who's a sun gazer, if you ever go out, I can look at the sun in the midday myself. I've been sun gazing enough, but if you're not a sun gazer, I recommend you do this in the morning or night until your eyes can take it. When you start blinking your eyes 10 or 20 times, you will see this electromagnetic cross. When you just blink, 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 blink while you're looking, this T-shaped cross, you'll see the long line come down to the ground and this T. And it's all over Ireland, Scotland. It's in Scandinavia. They found them.
So fun fact about that too is like even on a picture, like on the picture that I have, like in my it's in my upstairs little nook area, but like the Tartarian, like the flat Earth map, but like with the two hemispheres. When you look at when you look at it like in a certain light, that actually also shows like the Templar cross, what they call the Templar cross, like for the shape, even within like the picture, like when you're looking at the circles. So like so again, that's just also something that's it's just a reflection that is shown on a circle or a plate or a disc or whatever you want to call it. the Templars. I think he's going to get into this, but like, this is what I mean. Like, but people think that the tiny hats are responsible for what's going on. Like, I will tell you that people that are more older religion possibly than the one that's being interpreted now by people, but like, even like, I would say that there's more Christians, like I'll keep saying, that are involved with this and have been for many years, and the Vatican very much controls what's going on all over the world. And that's why there's like the absolute monarchy, or sorry, absolute authority, or whatever you want to call it, absolute power that is bestowed upon the Pope and the Vatican, and why they have their own Swiss army, or whatever you want to call it, and are hiding a lot of ancient archive data underneath, like in tunneling systems underneath the Vatican as well. And I've been to Rome, I've been to the Colosseum and Vatican City and all that stuff. St. Peter's Basilica, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my goodness, the Parthenon,
the Americas,
wow. The fountain.
Right. This is the symbol
Beautiful.
of the sun. Now here's some books. If people want to look into what I'm talking about, there's Irish Wisdom preserved in Bible and Pyramids by Conor McDowry, Rise of the Aryans by Patrick Chenard, and Donnelly's Atlantis. Donnelly but see, they weren't the Phoenicians. They were the Hezeg, Creost, Bel, Buell. And there is no J, by the way.
He's showing the Irish. This is Irish Gnostic teachings. And he's saying that even with like a lot of like newer, well, what we think are, maybe I'll rewind this a little bit more. I want to make sure that I get all of it
to get into. So now, if you're a Christian, this is really going to be triggering. So just hold your horses and hear me out, okay? The Irish Gnostic priests were called the priests of Yesa Creost. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should, because you know it as Jesus Christ, which is the Son and the descent of spirit into the body of man. So the word Yesa was not a guy called Jesus. People who say, what was a guy called Jesus doing running around the Middle East? He wasn't. Yesa is an Irish word it was a religion, a name for the religion. Now, the problem is, of all the Irish left in the world, only 2% of them can speak the old Irish, the old language. I'm not talking Gaelic and Celtic.
And I did the Ancestry, the 23andMe years ago. And I even then, I even said, like, I know that they're going to use this friggin' data and sell it to BlackRock, Raytheon. I knew. I was just very interested in it anyways, right? So, like, I've said this, right? Like, I have gotten inoculated knowing the actual risks for work and stuff like that when it wasn't forced on other people. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about for like Naked and Afraid for South Africa and stuff like that. And I rolled the freaking dice, and with the military as well. Like, my immunization booklet is through the roof. Like, even with boosters for things like you have no idea how much I've had to, and I still need to detox like from like all that shit. Like, anyway, I don't even know where I was going with this stuff. So I
know a girl by
so
fluke,
98% Irish.
When I was looking.
So my family is hundreds of years ago, right? And so not within the last 100 years, but like even 1300s, there were accounts of people coming in from other areas here from both sides of my family, but then also settling down with people that were already here for hundreds of years as well, with Josephine as well that I've talked about, Euphrazine, and others that are very much like within my family bloodline as well, ladies and gentlemen. And so like when I say I believe I'm a very patriotic Canadian, like I really mean it. And I and maybe I'm a sucker for that, which is why it's hard that I'm having to look at leaving Canada, because like my family has been here for generations, generations, literally hundreds, if not thousands of years is what I'm saying. And so, and we're getting pushed out by like people that are working in government that shouldn't be in government, and they're holding positions that, used to mean something and now they mean nothing. Right. And it's a fucking joke now. And these people are too busy with their drug fueled orgies, whatever, and traveling on our dime and stuff like that, and exploiting us in the process. And you see it all over Canada too, like the amount of friggin' homeless people now, like these tent cities all over the place. I've shared that as well. Like, these people are disgusting. And Chrystia Freeland is also, like, again, not only does she make hundreds of thousands of dollars and she's a millionaire on the backs of Canadians and stealing from us, but she also, like her gas, all of her fees are covered, right? So she's not paying for fuel for anything. Must be nice. Like, even $6,000 allocated towards her spa and her gym membership and her hair each month, not in a year. Because again, like, I don't even know any women that spend that in a year for like spa and gym. It's like, is she crazy? It's once a month, like, so for massages and stuff like that. And it's just like, she needs to be fired, right? If anyone has heard her talk, she's not suitable for any government position. And if she would have had to do this is what I mean as well. Like, there's people in government that have done that required physical fitness tests, cognitive tests, multiple courses, that they had to be certified on. Huge failure rates in these courses and stuff like that. Being away from their families for fucking decades, sacrificing on behalf of Canadians, and like, this bitch has the nerve to ruin their lives, destroy their lives, just so she could stay. I don't know, working in cabinet. I don't know.
For this. Who is one of the 2% who speak this. So some Irish words on the left here for Yesa Kriost, or the Son and Man's highest spirit, are Yesa, Yes, Hesiod, Hezig, Kriost, Bel, Buell. And there is no J, by the way, in the Irish language. And these are where we get the modern words that the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of England, and the Church of Ireland have hidden from us. We get Zeus, Jesus, Christ, Dios, Dios. I think that's maybe Japanese or Chinese. Baal. We all hear about the Baal worship, right? They all worship the demon Baal. No, it's Bel is the sun. It's not a demon. Ibalis, even St. Paul, that comes from these same words. So this has all been hidden from us. Now, people are like, the Jews run I don't know if we can say this on YouTube. Can we talk about the Jews on YouTube, or do we need to?
Tiny hats.
What's that?
The tiny hats.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, all right. I'll do that. So people say the tiny
only if
hats.
it's extremely positive and you don't say anything about some group of people owning and controlling everything. But
right. Okay. All right. So who are these tiny hats? Right. Originally, the Hebrews and the Jews were the Irish priests of the fire, the sun, Yesa. And the Irish word Heber or Eber, which means Ea, the fire, the sun, is where we get the name Hebrew from. Now, Ea was another name for Enki. Remember, in the Sumerian texts, Enki's name was also Ea. And the word Fion or Fin also means the sun. That's where the word Phoenicians comes from. But see, they weren't the Phoenicians. They were the Irish Phoenicians. They were the Eber priests of the fire, the Phoenicians who went around the world spreading their knowledge. And the people who followed their knowledge were called Eud or Yud, which means the day, the light, followers of the light, where we get the word Jew. There is no J in Irish. And that's where in Scandinavia, the word for Christmas or the holidays is Yule, J-U-L. It's where we get the word Yule. And Yule or Yule is an Irish word for the highest power, the dignity of the sun in the middle of the summer in the Royal Arch, learning, knowledge, which is where we get the word July. And Julius Caesar, a fictional character, I would propose, who never existed. Right now, keep this Ea in mind, because we're going to get into Zechariah Sitchins in a bit here and do a little debunking there. So everyone thinks that the pyramids are built by the Egyptians, right? Well, Cheops, the Great Pyramid of Giza or Yesa or Jesus or Esau, represents the spirit in the purified or regenerated man. Now, when you take the word Cheops, what does it say backwards? When you read Cheops backwards, it says Spoic. It's the Irish word for spirit. That the name of the pyramid is just the name of spirit backwards. And when you take the name Yesa, you get Giza, Giza. Hesig, Hezij, Hiesa. You get Jesus, Gaza. These are all old Irish names. Let me go to the next slide here. It's going to do it. Here we go. I don't think I even want to get into this. Yeah, I don't want to get into Lucifer, but fur, well, I'll show you what that is. But this is the white, still invisible light magnetic in the center here, which Walter Russell calls the still magnetic light of God. And then you have the black, still dielectric light in the toroidal field, and they create light, or fur, which is where Lucifer actually comes from. So Egypt and the pharaohs are Irish lore preserved in the Old Testament. And the word pharaoh comes from the Irish word fear, it's spelled, but it's pronounced far, which means man. In Scandinavia and Danish, far is the name for your father. And then the second word, it comes from the Irish word road, which means to ride, the sensual man, or roan, which means the two sexes or the sexless nature of spirit. So then when you start looking at the names of all the pharaohs, we're told that there's this line of Egyptian pharaohs, right? Once you start flipping their names backwards, King Menes, the first pharaoh, he digs the river Nile. Well, Menes is actually the Irish word mene, or me, which means May, month, monthly, where we get the menstruation, the monthly menstruation. And he digs the river Nile, which is
I will reiterate, you get the word menstruation because of the cycle of the moon and the mene and stuff like that. And it's not the other way around, just to be clear.
Irish word newel, which means the blood in the body, the menstruation in the blood. Then the next king, Potipharah, which comes from the Irish word poti, the bowels in the belly, and fur, man, truth, wisdom, a priest of the sun. Then over here, we get Enoch, right? The book of Enoch. Well, that comes from an Irish word, Enai, and Enoch, which means a wise, sage, or enlightened person. It's not a guy. It's a kind of person. And there are tales that Enoch is actually Hermes, who's actually Thoth,
that's interesting,
who's actually Enki from the Sumerian people.
That was really interesting to me.
Well, Thoth had the what? He had the Irish the emerald tablets, which come from the Emerald Isle of Ireland, right? So, and Hermes is the Hermetic wisdom. Same with Moses. That is an Irish word, mouse, for saturate, soak, swimming, the blood. Then there's also historians can't figure out who the Hicks.
That's actually a really good idea. Like I would love to have like a flat earth specific morning show, but like it's because my expertise was is not my background, my skill sets are I think regarding like the international security analyst, being an expert literally on the on events that are happening internationally and being closer than anyone in the world as to being like accurate and on point as to like things that are happening around the world. And so do I give that up? It's really hard because like there's a lot of fucked up stuff that's going on in the world and it crushes my soul like every single day. I'm not gonna lie, but there's no one else reporting on this stuff as accurately. Like I don't know anyone else that's and I'm not saying this, it's not a brag or anything like that. Like I really wish that someone else would wake the fuck up, like I don't know, and like and maybe there are people I'm just not seeing because like they're probably just as censored as me, but people within government like need to know this. Like the fact that our chief of defense staff, the fact that our heads of RCMP, the people that are supposed to be experts in these friggin' like other agencies, the fact that they're not tracking what's going on and sending people out to die, okay, when they've done that they've done that to me and people that I've loved as well, right? Send us out to die. And when you do it so fucking blindly, it's infuriating and it's completely unprofessional and not required and not how you're supposed to employ people or treat people is what I mean. And yeah, so do I stop that? Because I do also get like ever so often people reaching out to me all hours of the day and night, saying like, look, like, can you look into this, right? And like, and then they'll get, or like, what do you think of this? I get that a lot. What do you think of this? And then I'll let them know, and they're like, and then I'll send them data to support or back up why I'm saying that. And then they're like, holy fuck, literally people that are at the highest levels of government. Like I get that. emoji a lot, like the shock emoji or whatever, and or like the mine explosion thing, if you want to speak emoji, and yeah, and so like I don't understand why I still like I'm not having like these conversations with the people that I need to be having these conversations with, because like I don't know, it's heart-wrenching. And so like if I was to focus primarily on flat earth, it would just I don't know, like the world would still go on, right? It's nothing would change, so I'd be a lot happier. But that would be blissful ignorance, and so like that's not really bliss in my humble opinion. So like I don't know. Because people like even within our Canadian government, like people that are supposed to be like even like Minister of National Defense, it's fucking Bill Blair. I'm sorry for swearing, but like WTF, like I've always shared like even like well over a decade ago, almost 2 decades ago now. Like I mean no, not almost 2 decades ago, 2010, during the G20 summit, like he committed crimes against humanity, like against thousands of people, harmed, tortured, vilified, even people literally that like in houses that they lived in, apartment complexes that they lived in, not even involved in a peaceful protest, I'll reiterate, and then also baiting people, false flags, also like part of the police car that burnt. This was staged, it was deliberate, and I showed that on my videos. And so like the fact that he was in as Minister of National Defense during the Freedom Convoy event, it was not a coincidence. And it's not a coincidence that the Emergency Act was declared for the first time since World War II under that crazy psychopath's watch, right? And his homosexual friend, Jim Watson. And again, I have zero issues with the LGBT community. Again, I even dated a woman in my early 20s. All that stuff, there's no friggin' judgment. And all species, like there's a degree of homosexuality. And so like, and I don't think it's a sin, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just like within that group, there's often like a subset, unfortunately, a larger subset within that group that tend to be interested in perversions, and unfortunately, so oftentimes these perversions are also correlated with like people that are vulnerable, like children and stuff like that, right? And also consuming drugs, right? Because like the 2 biggest industries right now is human trafficking of all ages, but like a lot of children. Women are the number 1, and then it's children, and then it's men. So like that's why also more men are not speaking out on this stuff and watching it all happen. Even children that with like phone numbers on them, knowing that they're going to be going as sex slaves to people, even when within the U.S. they're just allowing that to happen, and as slave labor as well. So like people also working for people because it's cheap labor, because it's free, or I mean the cost of the child, which is not a lot. Yeah, open topic. That's a great idea as well. I would love to build my channel. It's been years and I've gotten like accounts deleted, and I understand why, especially on YouTube. That's why I went on Rumble, because like I expect there to be like censorship from YouTube. Obviously, like they're also their head executives or whatever you want to call it are also part of the weird club.
Hyksos were. So historians say these weird Hyksos who were foreigners, they were shepherd kings who invaded Egypt, right? And they say, we don't know who these people were. They can't figure it out. And the reason they can't figure it out is because Hyksos is a word from the Irish, spelled Tigsaus, but pronounced Hyksos, which means the upper house, a Magian priest or a spiritual shepherd. So these Hyksos were the Irish priests of Iesa Krios, the Phoenicians. All right. Here, the Great Pyramid of Iesa. This is from Conor McDarry's book, Irish Wisdom in the Bible and Pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Iesa, or Giza, is one of a group of 4. Iesa the largest, Shifran the second, Mycerinnes the third, and Asukis the least and lowest. And it represents the fourfold. There's the threefold Trinity, fourfold, and sevenfold principles of man. Which Walter Russell science gets into the sevenfold. This group of pyramids represents the fourfold system as symbolized by those monuments. So these Irish Magian built this in the fourfold idea, which is embodied in the cryptic language in the Bible and gives proof of authorship by the Irish adepts. So
it's also the cross. The fourfold is symbolized in the cross.
Absolutely, yeah, which is also the square unfolded as well. We can get into that later. But in the body, so you'd have your 4 regions. So you'd have the head, the heart, the navel and bowels, or the genitals would be the physical 4-fold nature. Then, like as Bear and you get into, you'd have the 4 elements, right? And you can carry the 4s out just endlessly. Now, here's where the Walter Russell gets interesting. So when we learn about what's really weird is when you look at Egypt, geographically, we're told that Lower Egypt was really north of Upper Egypt. If you start looking at the ancient maps, you say, why was Upper Egypt south of Lower Egypt? Well, again, the churches have flipped this around so we don't go looking there. They don't want you looking at Ireland. They want you looking at the Middle East and Egypt and Greece. So these are metaphors. Now, the story goes that the king of Upper Egypt led his forces into Lower Egypt and overthrew the king. Well, here's Upper Egypt. That's your upper chakras and man's higher spiritual being. And Lower Egypt is the lower physical attraction to the physical, the man's animal thing.
It's literally a phallic representation there.
Totally, yeah. So the king, this is a metaphor. This is not history. It's a metaphor for a man going into his higher chakra and higher spiritual being, leads his forces down into Lower Egypt, his animal desires, and overthrows the king. Now, when you look at their crowns, this is where we get the red and white of the Swiss Templar. We'll get into that in the night. We'll get into this later. Well, the old Egyptian hat is red and yellow. That's your red through yellow chakras. That's the lower 3 chakras. The Upper Egypt had the white crown, which white is split into the 7 colors of the rainbow, right? When you look through the prism, and vice versa, the white still magnetic mind of God, which Matt Presti synchronized for me the other day, is a symbol of perfected spirit. So the Upper Egypt king, or the person who's perfected spirituality, has the white crown. The person who has not has the red and yellow chakra, and the ruler of them all has all of them. He's perfected the red chakra all the way up to the top into the white. Now, it's kind of funny because in allegory here, they show, well, the double crown showed victory and symbolized unification, the joining of separate parts into one, which is exactly what these Irish mystics were teaching, is that you have to join all of your being into one. You cannot just be down here ruled by your lower mind.
Well, you know what, Steve, I'm thinking of, and I mentioned in chat here, which is like the great Irish lore of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yep.
So right. The rainbow, which symbolizes the chakras, right? Coming into the alchemical pot of gold.
They're missing
which is
indigo.
The sun,
so there's supposed to be 7 colors in here. There's only 6.
Which really is the logos, which is the word, which is the original language.
See how this all starts to syncretize? Once you get this knowledge, you could just do this all day. And the pot of gold is Potiphar. That's the imaginary pharaoh.
It's supposed to be violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red.
Who never existed. This is called Newton's wheel. Have you guys, this, right? Have you seen this?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what this is?
Spin it.
So what happens is when you take the 7 colors and you spin them, they turn into white. Watch. There's the 7 colors. And when you spin them, they turn into white light. Just as a prism turns white light back into the 7 colors. See that? So that's the white hat. And I have to give hats off to Matt. He's the one who actually really syncretized this for me the other day. So Jerusalem, it's not a historical place. It's the perfect spiritual body, which the ego or self is trying to build up. Matt and I talked about this on our podcast the other day. A lot of people are trying to they're following this Eastern BS mysticism about getting rid of the self and ego. But the self is the mind of God. You need the ego. Like, this is how you start to figure all this stuff out. And in the biblical allegory, go ahead, go Bear.
Well, I was just going to say, without the physical self, it's like an electrical system without a south pole, without a capacitor, without a grounding rod. So, what's the point of our appearance of physicality in the first place? And, just to bring this a little bit less into the, or more out of the mystical, when people do not waste their energy by leaking it out of the lower centers and cultivate that to the point where there's an abundance, just like in the martial arts, you learn how to do this, how to actually build up your energy reserves. And then with your focus, with your intent and attention, then you can direct that excess energy to any center that you want to perform any function. And in the case of when you go up to the optic thalamus, where that original sparking comes because it's the literal connection of the constellations above, then you have an intensification of that electrical activity, which then becomes visible, historically in all the saints and the sages, which is why we depict them with halos and so forth. But this is not a mystical experience. It's an electrical experience. And, we just have to know how to cultivate that energy, not waste it, and then direct it with our own will force to do whatever we want with it. So, again, this has all been mystified and so forth. And when you're getting into the 7, the 4, and the 3 and everything, then I think it's really worth for our audience sometime maybe to delve into an understanding of the 7 rays, because those are the 7 different intelligences that we're talking about. There's 4, attributes, in the lower centers. There's 3 of the higher attributes that, distinguish the kingdom of man from the lower kingdoms. And
okay, this is getting no offense or anything like that. Let's go. Anyway, this is interesting. I'm going to talk about blue-eyed, red hair.
I don't know, but I think I found that very interesting.
People.
Then we have the blue-eyed natives of Afghanistan, the blue-eyed natives of Iran, Aryan. In fact, the old capital of Ireland is
China
not
too.
Dublin. People don't know it. The old capital is Tara Hill, Tartaria. Tara backwards is Ararat. Blue-eyed natives of Pakistan. What's interesting is we know that in India, they have no history of ever sailing the seas or conquering another place. As far as we know, India has been there the whole time. Yet there are the same exact towers. They've got 75 of them still left in Ireland, that they've found 170 of them all over India. Now, how did the exact same towers get in India and Ireland if India never went to Ireland? Well, could it be that the Irish were in India? Is that where these religions and these histories come from? Then we have the blue-eyed people of Egypt, Sumer, which is an Irish word for summer. So Sumeria, when the Irish priests of Yesa Kriost, or An is another name for that, got to what we call Sumeria, it was hot there all year round, so they named it summer because it reminded them of the summer. When they found the Sioux Indians in North America, some of them had blue eyes and blonde hair, and the historians couldn't understand. The Sioux Indians were building cobblestone houses the way the Irish and Scottish and English did. They weren't living in teepees; they were living in cob houses. Where did they get that? Well, I would suggest they got it from the Irish. Here's more from Sumeria, blue-eyed statues. South America, blue-eyed statues again. Here's Egypt. Now, in North America, we have the red ochre people. They found graves where they were buried with red ochre jars in them, and they also find them in Egypt. Well, red ochre is an ancient version of sunscreen. If you were a white guy from Ireland and rocked up into a hot place like Egypt, you'd be using red ochre as sunscreen. And the Egyptians always have this. You see some brown people, black people, but then you see some white guys and some red guys. And we can't figure out what it's all about. And I would suggest that's what it's all about. Genghis Khan allegedly had red hair and blue eyes. Now, Khan, K-A-N, is another Irish word for the sun, a personification of the sun. Was Genghis Khan? Was he an Irish priest of On? Is that where they got it? What about they might be giants? Istanbul, not Constantinople. Was Constantinople actually Constantinople and not named after Emperor Constantine after all, right? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they say the Khans, and they all came from the Scythians, which is interesting, right? Which were red-haired, blue-eyed people from the steppes of Asia. And there's a lot of like questions around who these Scythians were, how they preceded the Greeks and the Persians, how a lot of the great philosophers came out of the Scythian lore from looking at their language and also just sort of their look. So that is interesting. I brought up the Scythians to you in Mexico, Steve. So the Scythians are maybe just another variation of these ancient Irish, huh?
Yeah, I've never looked into them, but I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? It's them for sure. Now
and also in South America, you have, you know, the Aztecs with Quetzalcoatl and the Mayans, Kukulkan, and they're all white skin, blue eyes. And of course, traditional history will say, well, that's because they're influenced by Cortez and the Europeans that came over.
Yeah, Kukulkan, Khan. Yeah. He's the sun. It's them. It's the Irish, you know. You're right. So, and funny you said that because that's my next slide. Here we go. So because I did this presentation, we were in Mexico. So I've got a list of hundreds of these, but I just picked the ones from Mexico. The Irish, here's the Irish sun god names, Cuculan. And in the Mayan in Mexico, it's Kukulkan. It's Kukulkan, Khan, the sun. In Irish, Telak. In Mexico, it's Tlaloc. It's the same. Chacmiol in Irish, Chacmul, Mexico. So as you just said, they're all there. So where did they get this? So all roads lead to Rome, as we say, which is going to get us into the archons down here. You know, there's a big debate over who's running this world down here. Is it the tiny hat people? Unfortunately.
Yeah, please tell us, who are these guys anyway?
Oh, we're going to get into that, and we're going to fact check ourselves too, because there's just as this myth about the archons is going around with the subdimensional, interdimensional beings, there are some crazy myths going around here too about who's running it. Now, unfortunately, all roads lead to Rome, but we're told Rome was founded by two twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, right? Unfortunately, when you take the word Romulus and spell it backwards, it's Sulumor, the Irish word for the great light, the sun. And when you take Remus backwards, it's Sumer, the Irish word for summer. And when you take Sumeria, it comes from the Irish word Som, Somra, Sumers, the sun. And when you take Syracuse, Sicily, it comes from the Irish word Syracuse, the Easterner, the sun. So the Syracuse Indians in the east of the United States are the Easterners. They're the Eastern Indians, which the Irish name them the Syracuse because they're the Indians in the east. Or I should say Native Americans, not Indians, right? So now when you start looking at Zechariah Sitchin, he says that these two brothers, Enlil and Enki, come from outer space in Nibiru, right? And their father is Anu. And Enlil hates the humans, and Enki loves them, and he wants to save them, and he makes them better. Well, Enki had another name, Ea, which I just showed several slides back, is an Irish name for the sun. And Enki is the word Inai for wisdom, the sun. And the father, Anu, is An, another Irish name for the sun. So the two brothers are higher wisdom fighting with lower animal desire. And the one who's in the higher wisdom is beneficial to mankind. Funny enough, they say there were several historians who, we have Akkadian dictionaries. They challenged Zechariah Sitchin to a debate and said, your translations are so off the mark. And he would never debate them. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I saw stories that Sitchin's office was in a CIA-owned building, and he was on the same floor as a CIA office.
Yep.
And he would never debate. Now, I'm saying how did this guy get all these tablets and he's the only authority on translating them, and
it's
everyone else who's an authority
bullshit.
says his translations are
It's
BS?
It's
And
all part of the psyops. It's propaganda.
How many people bought this whole
character.
Sitchin's 12 Planet series, right? I mean, isn't that one of the sparks? You did. Yeah. What did you think? Is it possible?
Well, no, I mean, long ago, I thought that was amazing, groundbreaking information. And, you know, over the decades of studying it more, getting access to new information, it's like, that was pretty far off.
Yeah, especially when you start to learn what realm we're in. Is there a planet?
And most likely far off by design.
Well, that is my point. I'm not accusing him, but I'm saying we need to be highly suspect, because when you know this Irish language, it seems that this is probably a more plausible explanation for the Sumerian story, is that it's just another Irish mythology and people are taking it out of context. So let's get into the tiny hat, people. He who controls the past controls the future, as George Orwell said. In other words, whoever's hiding this information I just talked about is doing it on purpose, because they will control our future. So we need to find out, why haven't we heard any of this, right? How is it we've never heard any of this? We've never even heard about the Scottish Highland genocides. Were you guys taught about that in school? That the Scottish Highlanders were genocided and it was penalty of death to speak Gaelic or Celtic? Did you ever hear about that?
I actually did remember, not to the detail of that, but I remember learning it in my Catholic school education about aspects of that, believe it or not. But it was just because I had a badass teacher who was interested in that, and it was mind-blowing to me. And he even talked about the Cathars and that whole genocide, but very rare to hear that, of course.
Right. Yeah. And then we hear about how the Irish were sent off as indentured servants. They were in the slave trade, right? But they weren't officially slaves. They were indentured servants. And then the great Irish potato famine, there were plenty of potatoes. They just took them all away from them. They just didn't give them to them. So
that's his interpretation. Mine would be that they used to have like different variations of potatoes, and then it ended up like with interference and stuff like that, where they were only authorized or allowed to control to grow a certain amount of potato or a certain kind of potato, and there ended up with like extreme weather conditions where they weren't able to grow crops, but also any of the food that they were growing and any of the agriculture they were raising was taken from them, from people that were exploiting them and selling it to other countries for insane prices, right? So North Korea is doing the same thing, enslaving an entire country, and it's just like it's so much misinformation going on there as well. It's so sad. It's so tragic, and people need to look at that as a lesson of what not to do, because that's where Canada is headed very fast. And if you think we're not, you're wrong and crazy, and there's people still alive in North Korea now that regret the fact that they didn't do something when they could have peacefully, right? But speak up, and they didn't. They just cowered to people that were working in government at the time, who committed crimes against their own when they were supposed to serve and protect. They didn't, and the same thing happened in Ireland as well, and China as well, right? So like there's now cops within China that are joking about. The fact that there's like a lot of like prostitution going on. It's disgusting. I've been calling that for years, but they're taking photos of women like in prison cells or whatever, saying like, hey guys, like your girlfriends, your dates for the night are all locked up and stuff like that, and they're laughing about it. Yet the fact that they reinforce policies that force people to only have the ability to have one child their entire life. Who the fuck was anyone to tell a woman like you could only have one child? But they were enforcing those fucking extreme dictatorship rules appallingly. So law enforcement were enforcing that, and nurses and abortion teams and stuff like that. And I've shared the accounts of people going out and actually forcing women to have abortions, like actually terminating the pregnancies, and or even after birth was done, like killing the fucking baby and stuff like that, and or taking the child away from the mother. Traumatic, horrific, insane, crazy. Okay, so now you've got generations of men I think it's like upwards of like 100 million men, because like women that were choosing to have like they were only allowed to have one child, most of them were choosing to have a boy, because a man is a provider, protector, like he can make more money with like labor and stuff like that, like for the house. There's like there was more benefits in that way. And so yeah, and so like there's just so many men in China now that will never have a family, will never have a wife, will never have kids or anything like that, just because like there's not enough women, because of generations of fucking morons enforcing and enabling that type of dictatorship policies, right? And so that's where you think that that's not where Canada is going to be headed soon. You're out of your mind, right? Because like the Canadians, us, the actual people that were born and raised here, or national citizens, or legal immigrants, the legal ones, not the illegal ones, fertility rates down for various reasons as well. But this is all, again, like people that were supposed to be serving and protecting, not doing that. And so now there's obviously more drug and sex trafficking going on in China, because like there's a lot of men that, again, like they have sexual urges and needs, then they want them to be met. Okay, that's why they're buying prostitutes. There's no women around for them to have women to have wives and stuff like that. And so like now they're also, again, so like it's just fucking like it's a hamster wheel, it's a circle, it's a cycle, and it's just frustrating because now again cops are like further exploiting their citizens, naturally freeborn citizens, and it's tragic, and that's where Canada's headed, and they're propping up China and what's going on in Ukraine, having no fucking idea what's going on in Ukraine, and the fact that a lot of the crimes against humanity that were committed in World War II happened in Poland and Ukraine and not in Germany, like ignorant fucks think it did. And you need to, again, like go into the history of what happened in World War II, please, and don't just go off of Wikipedia. Like, I'm not saying anyone on my channel, I'm just ranting again. Anyway.
So here we have, as I said in my speech at Acapulco, we have the Novus Ordo Seclorum.
And it's all because rich, entitled narcissists would rather people die, let that sink in, and be harmed and suffer and be homeless or made, or their children die. That's what they would rather than literally just to have another job. All these people, Justin Show, find another job. Go back to being a fucking fucking whatever you want to call it. You know, do something else. Like Christian Freeland, they could literally do something else, but no, they choose to be in these positions because it gives them that power and authority and ego and way more money that they don't deserve, and they hate us.
Well, there we have.
They don't want our children properly educated. They don't want they don't care what happens to our water systems, our air. They don't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about lockdowns. They don't care about not knowing the reality of the world. They don't care about what's going on in Ukraine, and that there was even their own law enforcement that killed peaceful protesters and blamed it on unknown shooters and tried to stage a fucking coup. And still there's political and religious prisoners in Ukraine, even right now, and corruption. And people are still like trying to like support funding Ukraine. What? Pierre Poilievre, what are you talking about? You are not suitable for your position as a leader of the Conservative Party, let alone Prime Minister, if that's what you're fucking coming at Canada with. Not the one.
The pyramid. The no embodiment
offense. Of no offense. Like, you're the one that's offending. You're the one that's
Egypt,
offensive.
The man's spirit, and there you got your pineal gland and optic thalamus, right? The all-seeing eye of Horus. Now, Horus is the sun at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's Horus, the sun rising on the horizon. And then you have Amun-Ra, which is radiance. That's the sun at 12 noon at its highest peak. Then you have the god Set, which is the sun setting at 6 p.m. And then you've got Isis down at night, the moon, when she comes up after the sun is gone. So the eye of Horus is just the sun. Now they declare their New World Order, Novus Ordo Seclorum. And as I said jokingly in Acapulco, is that Hebrew or Yiddish? And only one guy said, hey, that's Latin. And I said, what? So the tiny hat people declared their New World Order in the wrong language and the wrong religion? Or is something else going on here? Is it the tiny hat people? Why did they do that?
I don't think
no, I'm going to play this. I only could play 2 minutes. This is really like a 4-minute clip. Is it okay if we play this? I'd like people to see the whole thing here. We all know Jordan Maxwell. I think he's dead now, is he?
Couple years.
Yeah,
now.
he passed a good number of years ago.
Not a good number.
Okay,
of years
well,
ago, but
because this guy researched this for 50 or 60 years. So I just want to, I made a kind of a burn down of the best of this, but it's important we listen to this.
The bottom line on the world today and the stuff that's going on the earth today.
A good March 23rd, 2022. So less than 2 years ago. So like it's not a good number of years ago, less than 2 years ago. And RIP. And that's the thing. Like I was following him for like a number of years before he passed away, and Rob Skiba. Like it's just so the stuff is like I don't know.
What we call Illuminati was originally a term which is given to us in Spain to a religious order in Spain that later on were amalgamated into what we call Jesuits. So the Jesuits are truly Illuminati themselves. I believe that one of the most evil organizations that exist on the earth today, and you'd have to have spent all the years with me in libraries and research societies and traveling around the world and talking to other writers, authors, lecturers, and teachers, and collecting this stuff over a period of 45 to 48 years to understand what I'm telling you. But I believe today the most serious evil organization on the face of the earth is the Vatican. I think if the Vatican was done away with off the face of the earth, there would be a shout of liberation around the world. So when you talk about Illuminati, when you talk about the really dark criminal stuff that's going on the earth, you're talking the Vatican. You're talking the Knights of Malta, which gave us the 6 men who founded the CIA in America, were all Catholic.
And it's the easiest thing to do. Like even with like what I've been saying about the protests and stuff like that. Don't show up. With like the non-essentials, especially like clearly is what I'm saying. Like don't cause harm. Don't be like them. But like for truckers, waste removal, like and so many different services, even close protection and stuff like that. You know, like bodyguards, just like don't wish them harm. Don't support and enable that, but like just don't do the work. Don't do that work that supports and enables crime and corruption, right? So like even like for parliamentary protective services, yes, we absolutely need these people. We need them, but like we need them to serve and protect, not criminals, right? Like we need better people in the positions and stuff like that. So like if they just like did their own strike, you know, like fucking help the Canada, you know what I mean? Do your fucking job. Parliamentary Protective Services, RCMP. Like if these people like actually like investigated as well, right? Like just like actual like subpoena people, force them to court and stuff like that, and investigations and like you like just you gotta do it. Do the work that actually needs to be done. Stop being a coward, because that's exactly what you're being. And also like don't bring like Starbucks, you know, to the friggin' losers at Public Works or whatever. Like they're not all losers. Okay, I'm just like frustrated right now. So like let me just take that back and just like calm it down a little bit. Like anyone that's being extremist and causing a lot of like issues for Canada and Canadians, like these are the people that like the rich entitled people that go to work, like they stop at their Starbucks. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be the end of the world if like people just stopped like working for Starbucks and boycotted Starbucks and didn't provide any services or deliveries to Starbucks or McDonald's or Tim Hortons or the friggin' major chains, right? That are just like pushing friggin' unhealthy food and beverages to people anyways, right? So this is actually would be a better thing for humanity anyways. And then even with waste removal for a few weeks, like let these rich and entitled friggin' whatever you want to call it, like actually see what it's like to actually have to separate their own garbage and like manage their waste and actually go to the dump that's like local to like their community and drop off their friggin' garbage bags to a dump themselves instead of just putting it in their front yard once a week, right? Like most people have to do in the world, or people like burn or bury their friggin' their waste and compost a lot and reuse and reduce and recycle. There's a lot of people in suburbs and in the cities that are so wasteful that you couldn't even friggin' believe it. Like it's just, and so like stop with the bottled water, you know, and stuff like that as well. Like that's unhealthy anyways. And yeah, like the non-essentials. And then maybe they would start appreciating people in rural areas, like hardworking, like the people that are providing like their electricity, the people that are providing their like all the services that they need in order to like you know, sit at a desk for 8 hours a day playing spider solitaire, like I seen a lot of government people do too when I was serving.
Members of the Knights of Malta. When you begin to look at the banking fraternities in America, like the Bank of America, Union Bank in California, all of these people who founded these banks and today are running the banking establishment are all Knights of Malta, Catholic Masonry. So when I hear people talking about the Jews this, the Jews that, and the Jews are responsible, I said, no, you better go back and do your homework. The Jews have been slaughtered all over Europe by the Vatican. You need to remember that for at least 2,300 years, Rome has dominated Europe. Under the Caesars of Rome, and in the 4th century, late 4th century, the Vatican comes into being, and the Vatican dominates all of Europe. All the heads of state, all the princes and kings and rulers, all the kings and rulers in Europe rule by the divine right. Now, who represents divine to give the king the right? The Pope. The Pope appoints certain families to be over the French. The Pope appoints certain people to be over the German and over the British. And so by divine right. Why? Because the Pope represents God. And the Pope says that this family is holy and that they should rule. So if you want to talk about conspiracies and you want to talk about evil, don't talk about Jews. You better talk about the people who would control Europe for over 2,300 years, Caesar of Rome, the Roman Catholic establishment. There's the real story. Now you're getting into mafiosi. Now you're getting into the fraternal orders of Freemasonry out of Europe, Knights of Malta. Now you're getting into the organized crime, Sicily, Corsica, and all of the profound drug running, white slavery, murder for hire, Vatican. There's nothing holy in Israel. Nothing. There's nothing holy in the Vatican. There is nothing holy in Salt Lake City. There's nothing holy in religion, period. They have set up certain institutions of learning, of education, religion, and government. That's why I've said you better go back and do your homework on where the history of the world comes from.
Yep.
I don't see the world being run by Jews. I see Jews being used, but you will find that even Rothschild, the Rothschild family who we hear so much about, those Jews who were running Europe. No, if you go back and look at the history of the Rothschilds, you will find that Rothschild represented the Vatican. He was dealing for the Vatican. He was a Vatican banker appointed by the Vatican to deal for them, so that the Catholic Church would never be involved in all that terrible stuff going on in banking. We'll let the Jew do it. Then, of course, if something comes out, well, it's Jewish, obviously. No, it's your money that he was handling. So if you really want to nail down the real enemy to America and then to the earth, well, I don't know that much about it. I've just been looking at it for 48 years, is the Vatican. And that doesn't even bring up the subject of propaganda doing. P2, propaganda doing, P2 launch, that was even mentioned in Godfather 3 twice. It's connected directly, P2 is connected directly through membership with Opus Dei and the Knights of
Red
Malta
Cross
and the Jesuits. Jesuits, Opus Dei, Knights of Malta, Masonic Order, and P2 is pure.
Rockefeller means Red Cross.
Unadulterated, poured directly out of the trough, Nazism. Underworld organizations, drugs.
And so the world organizations, also one of them being the Red Cross, that I've also mentioned. It's also funded by Rockefeller. You can't make this stuff up, and he might get into it, but I'll get into it if he doesn't. But they're also the ones that created Israel, and and assigned it to be like this religious holy land out of all the holy of holiest lands and friggin' all of the world. And again, this is assigning meaning to a geographic location, that's not necessarily warranted. And even with people that believe believe in Jesus Christ being a real figure and not the son, right? It's like, or Santa Claus, or or believing in astrological signs and like what you read about your sign, like believing like that's how you, how you are, that's your personality. And like, and this is how you behave. And it's based on your sign and not based on your own actions and all that stuff. Right. And so even people like that have like royal blood, right? These are all people that are brainwashed into thinking that they have this magic blood, this royal, amazing blood. And they've convinced themselves throughout their generations as well into thinking that they have superior bloodlines than us, which is a fucking joke. Which is a joke, even with presidencies and stuff like that too. It's like based on your royal bloodlines and stuff like that. When you can prove literally all over the world, like in countless competitions, that there are people that are blowing these people out of the water, academically, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So like, where's your freaking like great blood? Like this is what I mean. Like that it's like people are getting brainwashed, even with political parties, right? Like people like put themselves into these like molds. All right, like NPCs is what I like to call them, right? Where they just like they've assigned themselves a role, like an identity based on something that has nothing to do with themselves, like their inner work, and that's just what they go off of, right? Like sports teams included. Like if you were like a diehard friggin' Boston fan, for example, I don't mean to offend anyone, but like that's your identity, right? Like how Boston fans are, and you have to be against Toronto or Montreal fans, Habs fans for life. You know what I mean? And it's so ridiculous to me, right? So like the people that believe that they have like royal rich blood or whatever, like I'm sorry, like I went to the high level academic institutions as well, and I blew these people out of the water in countless friggin' ways, right? And so like top awards and so like that don't impress me much. Like I don't give a shit. And so like these are all like what it's the meaning that people put into these characters or these symbols that people are representing. Like this is where people are getting caught up into believing that there's going to be any type of solution to their own lives beyond themselves, right? Like it's the inner work that needs to be done in order to have the exterior world that you want to have and be a part of. And so even with like people think that Israel's the Holy Land, well, I think that where I'm living right now is just as beautiful. You know what I mean? Like I don't think like what the fuck are you talking about? Like it's a little rude to like just like make it where like one piece of land is like superior based on what? Based on your interpretation of fucking of what you've read and your life experiences. But yeah, and and a lot of overdevelopment and exploitation, and therefore because of trade and shipping routes for people that are entitled, perverted, disgusting people, and you can't like if you can't even see like even with Freud and these. Like even what people were propping up as like professional psychologists, they literally put these people in these positions to look like experts and like superior to us to allow for their disgusting desires to be legalized and accepted and tolerated. All right, this radical tolerance and acceptance. This is based on people's perversions that are unfortunately in the billionaire club now that have that are far removed from reality. They think they have magic blood. I have magic blood, and they dress up with these crowns. They dress up with their little fucking cloaks and stuff like that, and they have like and it's like whatever. Like you're LARPing, you're live action role playing, and people are eating it up. Oh, they're so amazing. They come from royal blood. They're so much better than me. Are they now?
Human trafficking,
same shit.
Pornography, violence, underworld organizations, all P2. They are the ones who are promoting the right-wing death squads in Central and South America, Mexico, the drug cartels in Colombia, and it's all being orchestrated out of the Holy Father in Rome.
Yeah, you think that? Don't even get me started.
Right. You guys got anything to say about that? Because we're going to fact check.
Yeah. So, Steve, have you? I'm sure you have. You're familiar with the book "Rulers of Evil" by Tupper Saucy.
Tupper Saucy, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Can I just read This is like the jacket cover of the book.
Go for it. Yeah.
This is about Tupper for people that don't know him. Let's just take a second. Rather than pass through the Atlanta federal prison camp gate to serve a sentence for a tax misdemeanor back in 1987. Now, this is where I first became involved with circles with this gentleman here. And he was, along with some of us, we're poking the bear relative to the tax system. And by the way, folks, stop paying your taxes. Come on.
Don't stop paying your taxes. Don't because that's a crime, or it's. I mean, you do get penalized for it, and interest rates and all that stuff. And what you need to do is you need to let your local leaders know you're dissatisfied with all of these fucking bullshit taxes that are coming out, and let them know that you know the reality of the world, and and stop allowing dumb morons that are underqualified to dictate your life at the expense of yourself and those that you love and care for. And Doug Ford, like, he doesn't have post-secondary institution. He doesn't have post-high school. He's a liar with that as well. And he's also repeatedly cheated on his wife, including recently. And other people within his team got took the fall, and it was like made mainstream media that they cheated on their wives with their own staff from within. Again, like, this is a friggin' weird group now, like that's running the show. They're not running anything; they're ruining things. But and so like he like. Clearly not up for the job and in for way too long, very, very underqualified, and also exploited us with this decal business that went from approximately $2 million in worth to, because of all the signs that were used in our lockdown fucking communist dictatorship country. Doug Ford, conservative, is the one who I think it's like now $50 million, whatever his company is worth. He made multi-million dollars on the lockdowns and pandemic. And that is disgusting to me. And the fact that people are still going to vote for him and vote for Pierre and supporting this, and people not condemning this, and the cheating on his wife of 30 something years. Like how disgusting is that? This gross fucking morbidly obese loser has not earned his position. He has not earned it. He has not earned it. I will reiterate that. He's not put in the work or the effort. None of these fucking freak shows have. They're just pushing an agenda. See, like, sometimes I fire myself up. It's the French Irish, like, it literally is the fucking blood. And I don't know, maybe anyway. I'll mix videos up because I wanted to share this as well. The Rothschilds created Israel. This is from Stanton Creed. This is not me saying this. This is just I'm reading the title, and then I'll let you see the video,
which has been submitted.
It's 67 words long, it's 100 years old, and it changed the course of history for the Middle East and the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, the expression...
Yeah, like, you're right, Scott. I'm doing absolutely nothing to fucking try to help my country or the world with everything that I've been sharing. The fact that I've had my house attempted to be broken into. The fact that I was driven off attempted to be driven off the fucking road. Like, people trying to, like, as I was fleeing my fucking country, or trying to, flee my province, not my country. I even had my motel room attempted to be broken into for like over fucking 10 minutes. I don't get trolls on my fucking DMs all the fucking time harassing me because of what I've been sharing for fucking years, including with the pandemic. I haven't lost fucking hundreds of thousands of fucking dollars because of contracts I don't fucking have, because of not getting vaccinated, holding a stand. So Scott, you're blocked, and fuck you, by the way. Dumbass. I'm gonna carry on with my video now. Yeah, I haven't done enough. Get fucked. Flee. Like, are you fucking? It's a fucking joke. These people are a joke.
The British government support for a Jewish home in Palestine.
I haven't done enough.
Was sent by
I'm telling people, don't commit crimes. I'm saying, if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to get charged and fined. That's not anything about taking a fucking stand. People are getting shot at protests or arrested at protests, or people are just posting online that they support the protest, getting fucking charged and arrested. I don't want that for other people. You fucking idiot. You have to do this peacefully and legally because we do have the majority of people against us. This is Nazi fucking Germany, Nazi Europe, with the majority of people being fucking mentally unwell, dictating the fucking rules for the masses. I've had cops come to my fucking home late at night when I was in bed with someone who has complex PTSD because of being of service to Canadians overseas, burying people I fucking loved even during ramp ceremonies. I've had cops come to threaten, intimidate me with zero evidence of anything wrong that I've ever done in my fucking life. Okay? Overwhelming. And I had to show fucking proof that, like, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. All these things that you're alleging, not real. Not fucking real. Multiple times come to my fucking house where I had to file a third-party complaint against law enforcement, Huntmar, against people that I fucking worked with before on higher level contracts. And then having them harass me continuously through the fucking community in my neighborhood for years afterwards, flicking their lights off on, making me pull over and then driving away laughing and stuff like that. You think that's fucking funny? and then having Taggart destruction crew literally using fucking military grade vehicles right 5 feet from my fucking home for years with the beep, beep, beep to actually disrupt my videos. And so like, I just can't with people. Like there's ways to do it now, but like going to prison for fucktards is not the answer. Okay, because even like having a record, you will not get possibly approved for a mortgage or insurance. So again, this can ruin your fucking life. It can make it where you're not able to work in government or have like a good like a decent job for the rest of your fucking life. They're going after innocent people is what I'm fucking saying, numbnuts. So actually committing a crime, you're literally just saying, hi, come get me, ruin my life. How many emails have I sent regarding the carbon tax and emails have I sent to people all levels of government? Have you? The person that fucking sent that message, I don't even know what your name is anymore. I don't even give a fuck. Like, have you? No. Have you called anyone regarding the carbon tax? Have you done any research on it on your own? Have you tried to engage lawyers? Your mayor, your district leader? Probably not.
The Balfour to the second Lord Rothschild. I'm here in Buckinghamshire at Waddesdon Manor to speak with the fourth Lord Rothschild about the Balfour Declaration, what it means for Britain, for the Jewish people, and the Rothschild family.
And I don't know if people are waking up to this because people are again, like they just want to fucking troll people, but there's still Coots brothers, there's still Coots guys in jail from the Freedom Convoy that was planned and organized by Justin Trudeau and his little fucking minions like Marco Mendicino, who was the public safety officer, and then Bill Blair, the Minister of National Defense. Leftists within the Liberal caucus in cabinet getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and then also because of their shares and stocks in the military pharmaceutical industrial complex have multiple millions of dollars. They're trying to bait us. So why make it fucking easy? Like, again, this has to be, unfortunately, this has to be, not unfortunately, like it's, but this, anyways, ultimately this has to be peaceful. And we have to have people from within to actually become lawyers, become cops, the good ones, become military and be the good ones, right? Because clearly the ones that are in now, not it, right? And this is left and right, because even Adolf Hitler, he became like a ruler in Germany. He was a socialist. He was a leftist. He was a communist, socialist. I'll reiterate that. He came under power under a socialist party in the late 1920s, and then became leader in the late 1930s. And then as soon as he became leader, he had like over 1,000 people executed from within his government that were speaking out on like all the crazy stuff that he wanted to implement and impose, and trying to call out the false flags and all that stuff and the propaganda and all that what they were calling the trans movement. Even then, people were trying to speak out on that as well, and people think that that's new. Like it's all old and boring stuff. We just keep on recycling the same scripts.
The Foreign Office, November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild. Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question, because he was really interested in ornithology, although he became interested in Zionism. I think the reason was this, that it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this.
And of course, the Rothschild family then as now filled two roles, because it wasn't just a leader of diaspora Jewry, it also played a very significant role in the early years of the establishment of the pioneer communities in Israel as well. I just want to revisit for a moment your cousin Dorothy, who you mentioned, who at an extraordinarily young age, still in her teens, played such a critical role as a go-between and a facilitator for Chaim Weizmann. Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, she married my cousin Jimmy when she was 17.
So this is your cousin Dorothy, Dolly.
Yep, Mrs. James de Rothschild.
And from her teenage years onwards, she was a major supporter of Israel, wasn't she?
Major supporter. I mean, she worshipped her husband, who'd been deeply committed, son of Baron Edmore. It was due to him, I think, that she became interested. But once she became interested, she became passionately interested. After his death, she became even more committed. She just wanted to carry out his wishes and what he cared deeply about. And you can read letters from her to Weizmann and from Weizmann to her when she was only 17. And what she did, which was crucially important, was to connect up Weizmann with the British establishment.
I think she also trained him in how to deal. She helped educate how to
and it's
conduct himself.
At that age, but she did tell Weizmann, how to kind of integrate, how to insert himself into British establishment life, which he learned very quickly.
So I'm here in the Waddesdon Manor archives, where there is a treasure trove of remarkable documents from the time of the Balfour Declaration. We have the correspondence here between the teenage Dorothy and her husband James, and it's really a love story. Here we have detailed letters describing her dealings with Zionist leaders, her advice and her suggestions regarding the conferences of the Zionist movement. And here we have a letter that the young Dorothy, still not 20, sent to Dr. Chaim Weizmann, where she's talking about the meetings that she's arranged for him. And as we've heard, she was helpful in training and preparing him to enter into the highest echelons of British society to advance the cause of the Zionist movement.
Very interesting. And so now back on to, I know it's a long video.
For a tax misdemeanor back in 1987. Now, this is where I first became involved with circles with this gentleman here. And he was, along with some of us, we're poking the bear relative to the tax system. And by the way, folks, stop paying your taxes, come on. Okay, so let's see.
And I'm saying pay your fucking taxes, because you don't want to ruin your life unnecessarily, especially if you want to have a family and stuff like that, because like you're not setting yourself up to have like the best start with a wife and children and stuff like that if you can't even get a mortgage or insurance or a job, in like a good suitable job because of doing that, right? Like they're looking for ways. And fun fact, like getting charged and or going to prison and stuff like that for things like that also just gives them more money, right? So these like weird people that were trying like not to support and enable, by doing that, you're making yourself a victim. You are.
The author Tupper Saucy chose to become a fugitive in order to freely investigate his adversary, the United States of America. What he discovered was valuable new proof of a vast Roman Catholic substratum of American history. More specifically, that Jesuits played eminent and underappreciated roles in persuading New Englanders to rebel against their mother country in 1776. Indeed, according to Saucy's groundbreaking discoveries, the American Revolution and its resulting constitutional republic may have been single-handedly designed and supervised by a Jesuit named Lorenzo Ricci, this country's true founding father.
It's really small.
So anyway, that doesn't suggest that they're the good guys behind finding the country. It just means they found this country for reasons other than what we think it was founded for. So please continue, Steve.
I mean, I'm glad you read that because we're going to get into Ricci or Ricky or however you want to pronounce it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're in.
You also have you have all the law. We talked a lot about the law stuff in Mexico. I think it was like 75% of what we were talking about and going into the trusts and all that. And of course you've got, and this is all historic fact, right? With like Pope Boniface, the papal bull, Unum Sanctum, in the 14th, I think it was early 1300s, where essentially makes claim to all souls ownership of all souls, present, past, and future, so, and I know there's a lot of different stuff in the law with the Vatican essentially claiming ownership of souls. And then there's the whole concept of the birth certificate and taking blood from everyone born, and that's being sent to the Vatican still in ownership of those souls. So there's a lot to unpack here with this and the Vatican.
That's weird.
Well, that's a great point, Mike. And I don't want to dwell on this right now, but your people know about the maritime law and the all caps name, right? So, like, I don't know her name. Who wrote Harry Potter? What's her name?
J.K. Rowling.
Oh God,
whatever her name is.
Intentionally, Blake turned name out of my head because
so I always do. Anyway, she owns the copyright to Harry Potter, right? So you and Bear and I, we can't go dress up like Ron, Hermione, and Harry Potter and go make money.
J.K. Rowling.
That's her, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you and Bear and I dressed up like Ron, Hermione, and Harry and we're out charging money, acting like them, we would owe her money because we're using her copywritten universe. And funny enough, the Jesuits are the first people to make this spinning ball space model, right? None of the ancient cosmologies. So they got this fake place. Then all of a sudden we go on this calendar that we're on right now, which is a Roman Catholic calendar. The Jews have another calendar. They're not on our calendar. And anyone who knows contract law, you have to date it. You sign it and date it. Well, you're dating it on this Roman Catholic calendar, right? So it's like copyright law. They own your name in all caps. They own the fake date and they own the fake spinning ball you're on. So everyone's going around doing commerce illegally because they own the copyright to all of this, which is what's going on. Now, what I have pulled up here is King John's concession. This is the big Magna Carta. Everyone says, oh, we're free because King John's 1216 Magna Carta. What they don't realize is in 1213, King John conceded to the Pope Innocent III. And he said, I do offer and freely concede to God and his holy apostle Peter and Paul's successors, and to our mother, the Holy Roman Church, and to our Lord Pope Innocent and to his Catholic successors, I give them the whole kingdom of England and the whole kingdom of Ireland with all their rights and appurtenances for the remission of our own sins and those our whole race as well, for the living as for the dead, and now receiving and holding them as if it were a vassal. Now, a vassal is a fancy term for a bitch. So if you're a vassal of the Roman Empire, you're their bitch. From God and the Roman Church. And he says, we shall do liege homage to him, binding our successors, meaning everyone after, and our hearers by our wife forever, in similar manner to perform fealty and show homage to him who shall be chief pontiff at the time, and to the Roman Church without demur. And anyone down at the bottom, anyone who doesn't go along with this. So this is what Jordan Maxwell was saying when he said that the Pope is appointing all these royal families and dukes and lords, and this is what he's saying. They're all vassals of the Roman Catholic Church. They're appointed. So he signed everyone over in Ireland and England forever. And then he gives you the Magna Carta. Yeah.
Stephen, if you wouldn't mind, could you enlighten us a little bit about what's going on with the papacy right now? You know, there's all sorts of theories floating that Pope Frankie never took up the papal residence and all that kind of thing, and Benedict. So what's happening there? You know?
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, Francis is the very first Jesuit Pope ever. The Jesuits have been wanting to get a Jesuit Pope, so that's a great question. If you can hold that, we'll get to that, because in order to understand that, we need to understand what are the Jesuits and what is their allegiance to the church and to what extent. Now, what I heard a lot is people say, well, listen, it's the Jesuits and they're using Kabbalah, but the Jesuits are aligned with the small hat people. They're saying the Jesuits are a small hat and Roman Catholic alliance, right? So I did some fact checking. The Jesuit order has an Arian paragraph. So there's actually a constitution which it has 6 impediments against reception into the order. One of the first ones is which Jewish descent up to the 4th generation is not, that you can't get in if you have any Jews in either side of your family for 4 generations. They won't let you in. And they put that in the statutes of 1593. They were still there in 1608, and they were there again in 1893. So in hundreds of years, they never changed their mind. And the general councils of the order have many times said Jewish descent must be considered as an impurity, a scandal, a dishonor, and infamy. So that's what the Jesuits think of the small hat people. So if you think they're an alliance, think again. And Suarez, he was a noted Jesuit theologian. He said Jewish descent is an impurity of such indelible character that it is sufficient to prevent admission into the order, meaning they're not going to let them in. Now, this is from a book by W.C. Brownlee, which I can highly recommend everyone read, called The Secret Instructions of the Jesuits. He was a professor in the University of Edinburgh. So here they're talking about, down at the bottom where it's highlighted, the non-observance of which by Cardinal Tolet, who is a Jesuit, our order obtained from the Holy See that no Moran. Now, a Moran is a person who's like a half Jew, half something else, or half Muslim, half something else, descended from the perfidious race of Jews, which means treacherous, faithless, not worthy, and the Mohammedans, so that's your Muslims, who will not oblige himself to perform such a vow, should never for the future be admitted among us. So the Jesuits here are saying, if you're even part Jew or Muslim, get out of here. But then they talk about another letter that was discovered from the confessor of the King of England, a Jesuit, how admirably our Jesuit people imitate the Puritan preachers, how we accept ourselves to all kinds of character. With the Jews, we are Jews to gain their object. With the infidel, we are skeptics. To the immoral, we are the most liberal and indulgent until we gain absolute ascendancy over them. So the Jesuits admit that they'll happily have their own members pretend to be Jewish, or even atheists for that matter. And sometimes they don't even know they're up against the Jesuit. So this is one of the scams they play. And now this is one of the biggest reasons people state for the small hat people running the world, right? We've all heard of the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And this came out in Russia in 1903. And suddenly the Catholic Church was putting out bulls and letters to all of their organizations, even to the Protestant churches and everywhere else, saying they had uncovered a Jewish satanic communist plot to form a one world government, take away all rights and liberties, and destroy the papacy, the monarchs, and governments, deprive all people of rights and liberties. And the funny thing is, only the reunification of the church which is the whole goal of the Jesuits after the Protestant and Calvinist Reformations. They've been wanting to reunify the churches, which Francis is doing now. So that'll get us into Francis. But who's the only one who can stop a satanic Antichrist plot? Well, the church, the Pope, the voice of God, right?
Of course.
He's the only one who can save this thing. Now, what's funny is we've all heard that the Protocols of Zion, it went to court several times. It was considered a forgery, not a fake. So forgery is like I copy Mike's paper or Bear's paper and the teacher catches me. It doesn't mean it's a fake. It means I got caught copying someone else's work. Now, here's what no one ever looks at. A forgery of what? Did the Jews write this or did the Jesuits write this? Well, when you go back 130, now it's important to, at the time of 1903, countries like France and Germany were expelling the Jesuits because they were openly writing works about the Jewish solution. And then all of a sudden this forgery comes out exposing this Jewish plot, right? And you're like, so this is David Icke's Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution is you want to get rid of the small hat people. So you write this and say they wrote it. And now you got carte blanche to take them out. Well, you go back to the 1660s, 130 or 40 years earlier, and the Jesuits had written a book called The Secrets of the Elders of Bourges Fontaine, were these against Jansenism. Now, the Jansenists, they were, what's his name? Pascal. I think he was the mathematician. I think they use his math, don't they, in computer coding? Is that Pascal or? I'm not a
yeah.
Right. So he was a Jansenist. So these people, they believe that God was the sovereign, not the Pope. They don't believe the Pope is the sovereign. They believe God is. And they broke away from the Catholic Church because of the Jesuits. So suddenly this book comes out with a secret, they all got together in the woods of Bourges Fontaine and made a secret satanic Antichrist plan to form a one world government and a plot to overthrow the throne and altar, the papacy, and establish religious tolerance all over the world. And guess who's the only people who can save the world from this? Well, the Catholic Church. So that's where the original almost comes from. But then this guy is the greatest. So this book came out in 1828. It's called The Jesuit Conspiracy, The Secret Plan of the Order. Now, this guy is great. The Abbot Leon, or Leone, I think you pronounce it. So I have this book. I can't recommend this enough. So he was 19 years old and he was just recruited into the Jesuit order. And he's in one of the French abbeys and he's in this back room where they keep the forbidden books, like the secret tiny back library, right? Because he's a nosy 19-year-old. So he's back there reading the forbidden fruits, and suddenly he hears like 20 of them come into the big room, and he doesn't have the door totally shut. It's cracked a little, like he's got like an inch crack in the door. So this guy's freaking out. He's like, shit, I'm not supposed to be back here. Do I walk out now? And they know I'm in here. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, do I wait here? Or do I walk out and get busted? So God, for some reason, he says, tells him to wait. And he's in there. He's taking notes. So all these Jesuits and the Jesuit director general sit down and they have this huge multi-hour meeting. And this guy starts transcribing the meeting back there while he's in the back room. Right now, this is where you really get your Protocols of Zion. This is where it really is copied from. And this book is hundreds of pages.
Which is propaganda.
So I just took two little parts out. Here's what the Jesuits said when they're planning this. You well know that what we aim at is the empire of the world. But how are we to succeed unless we have everywhere adepts who understand our language, which must yet remain unknown to others, which is gematria out of Kabbalism, Khan. Let every individual, therefore, yield up an entire obedience, and let the Pope, but a Pope of our own forming, be its perpetual abbot. Right? So these Jesuits, they need the Pope to hide behind. They need a Roman Catholic Church, but they don't care who's the Pope. And they've poisoned. I mean, when you look at the guy, was it Benedict, the guy before Francis? He looked like he was being poisoned to death. Didn't he look sick? People say, oh, he looks like the devil. I think they were poisoning him. And I think they poisoned, was it Pope, what was his name? Pope John in the 70s or 80s. What was Pope John Paul, was it?
Pope John Paul, yeah.
Right. So
just a quick anecdote there. You know, I showed you the picture of the Pope that's in my family lineage, and they were big on all that. They did the family tree. So it's like right in our, you know, it's the only Pope in history to retain the family name, which was my family name, Lando. But he also had the distinction of having the shortest papacy. And within my family lines, it was reputed that he was assassinated very quickly because of certain beliefs that were contrary to the narrative of the Vatican.
What do you know what year or years approximately? What?
Yeah, I just put it up in the chat. It was 913. Yeah, 913 AD.
Right. So he is well before the Jesuits because they don't really come into establishment until the 1500s, right? But
interesting. Okay.
But they would have been doing it.
It was yeah, he was considered oft for some reason. And I know he wasn't the only one to be assassinated. Anyway, continue on. That's just
well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we won't get into this, but there were several U.S. presidents who were poisoned actually on the same dates too. Usually on the exact same day. And these Jesuits are masters of poison. But anyway, so where a lot of this comes from, let me, did I miss one here? All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, here, the second part I took out of this book, this is them. These are the guys, the Jesuits are having the meeting where this guy's taking shorthand. They say, we must first decide then what course to follow with the multitude who have been bewildered and fascinated by such fine sounding words as rights, liberty, right? What kind of crazy people like those? Human dignity and so forth. It is not by straightforward opposition and by deprecating their idols that we shall prevail. To prepare for men of all parties, whatever may be their banner, a gigantic surprise. That is our task. Well, I mean, look, it's not the Protocols of Zion, it's these guys. This is exactly what the Protocols of Zion said. But this is these guys. Now, what I want to get into real quick is a lot of this comes, so the Jesuits come out of Cosimo de' Medici. We've all heard of the Medici family, right? The Medicis are what's called one of the black nobility families. We have the word medicine and media that comes out of this. So what happened was the Irish, the Gnostic information we talked about in the beginning, the Catholic Church, and they destroyed a lot of this for the first 500 years before the Vatican. I would suggest that the Library of Alexandria was already destroyed because 100 years before that was allegedly burned, they already stoned Hypatia to death out in the streets, the Gnostic Hypatia. So they were already killing anyone who was talking about Gnostic knowledge 100 years before. So I think it's ridiculous to think that they allowed the Library of Alexandria to exist for another 100 years. But maybe. So anyway, all this information.
So I'm a big fan of Hypatia because not a lot of people know that Hypatia was a woman, possibly a woman. Again, this could be like another fake mythological character, likely is. Why is it not coming up? Oh my God, I was like, there we go. Great female scholar in history. Born around 350 to 370. We got that 37 in there. Died 415 AD. The greatest mathematician and astronomer of her time. So I'm like, hey, maybe I'm her reincarnated. I'm kidding. I'm obviously kidding. But maybe like the higher level consciousness being that's playing me, this character, maybe he or she also, it's not a female or masculine being or higher level consciousness. But anyways, maybe likes these types of characters in the game. You know how like some people with like certain games, like they like specific characters, like they play them like repeatedly, like maybe it's like that going on, and maybe they don't necessarily look the same. become interested in the same things. There's so much truth coming out. Like even as I'm talking, I'm getting so many messages and even with COVID, like there's so much more information coming out, and underground crime rings where like there's even rappers involved, like record labels, like so much more is coming out. It's wild times.
Okay, so let's see. Author Tupper Saucy chose to become a fugitive in order to freely investigate his adversary, the United States of America. What he discovered was valuable new proof of a vast Roman Catholic substratum of American history. More specifically, that Jesuits played eminent and underappreciated roles in persuading New Englanders to rebel against their mother country in 1776. Indeed, according to Saucy's groundbreaking discoveries, the American Revolution and its resulting constitutional republic may have been single-handedly designed and supervised by a Jesuit named Lorenzo Ricci, this country's true founding father. So anyway, that doesn't suggest that they're the good guys behind finding the country. It just means they found this country for reasons other than what we think it was founded for. So please continue, Steve.
I mean, I'm glad you read that because we're going to get into Ricci or Ricky or however you want to pronounce it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're in.
You also have, you have all the law. We talked a lot about the law stuff in Mexico. I think it was like 75% of what we were talking about and going into the trusts and all that. And of course you've got, and this is all historic fact, right? With like Pope Boniface, the papal bull, Unum Sanctum, in the early 1300s, where essentially makes claim to all souls, ownership of all souls, present, past, and future, you know. So, and I know there's a lot of different stuff in the law with the Vatican essentially claiming ownership of souls, and then there's the whole concept of the birth certificate and taking blood from everyone born, and that's being sent to the Vatican still in ownership of those souls. So there's a lot to unpack here with this and the Vatican for sure.
Well, that's a great point, Mike. And I don't want to dwell on this right now, but your people know about the maritime law and the all caps name, right? So, like, I don't know her name. Who wrote Harry Potter? What's her name?
Oh God.
Ones is which Jewish descent up to the fourth generation is not. You can't get in if you have any Jews in either side of your family for 4 generations. They won't let you had the closest bloodline ties one. So Donald Trump was bragging about how he made one of the rooms on his Trump Towers all gold, a whole floor, and to commemorate his relative Charlemagne. So I thought that kind of funny. And then, you know, whenever you see the presidents after the final debate, they all go to Cardinal Timothy O'Brien's for this big dinner. Did you all see this after the Trump-Hillary election?
Oh, yeah. I love the Bernie there.
I had to put Bernie in, right? So, again, if the tiny hat people are running the world, Barney Sanders, as I call him, Bernie Sanders, he was lecturing to stadiums of 60,000 people like Trump, wasn't he? And Hillary was talking to like 400 people. Wouldn't they have put him in for the Democratic? You know what I mean? Why did they choose a papal witch? Wouldn't they have put their tiny hat man in? But no, these two are both related to Charlemagne and King Edward III and not him. And this is what always happens. So, they go to this guy who runs the United States for.
And these are the same people that are saying like they don't understand why people are trying to get reparations for things that were done hundreds of years ago. Do you not see the irony? Do you not see the irony? Right? You're still banking off and getting money and getting the bank literally for like, you know, people from like friggin' hundreds of years ago. Like, let's move on from that, right? And like actually hire people and elect people not based on that stuff, right? Like it's literally like electing people based on their zodiac sign, their birth date. Nothing to do with their credentials, their work experience, like none of that stuff. No, it's like your birth date. Clown world. Why? It's the same people that believe in Santa Claus as adults. That's the way I see it.
Or the Vatican and the Jesuits.
Just as ridiculous.
And of course, So now this gets into Ricci, Bear. Okay. So the American flag is the ensign of the Jesuit East India Company from 1707 to 1801. It has the 13 stripes, and they just changed the British logo to the star, you know, the blue and white stars, but the color schemes are the same. Now this guy, this is in the Rulers of Evil, I think, Bear, the book you have. So General Ricci, I don't know if I actually have this, if we're going to talk about, yeah, I'll get into this. Anyway, this Ricci guy, he apparently dies and no one's allowed to go to his funeral. It's like a Bin Laden thing, right? They just bury him at sea and you just take their word for it.
Yeah.
A year later, this dude turns up when they're having the flag committee in the United States. And this old man they call the professor turns up. He's Italian, but they don't know what his deal is. And he gets on the flag committee, and suddenly they make this flag. They put a Jesuit flag in for the United States. And then when they're having their final thing, when they're about to decide, like they're getting ready to do the Constitution, K-A-N, Khan the Sun, this guy gets up and makes this speech saying, we need religious freedom. If we're going to be a religiously free place and freedom, we want all religious freedom. And that's because they weren't going to allow the Jesuits in, because the founding fathers said, if these Jesuits get a hold here, we're screwed. And suddenly this guy who's turns up a year after Ricci allegedly dies, makes this speech, and they give it religious freedom. Now, 100 years before that, the Jesuit priest, Andrew White, he had already made the colony of Virgin Maryland in 1633. And he is the guy who started Jesuit Georgetown University, right? Well, they didn't have the White House yet. So he donated his property in Maryland, which is where DC now stands. He let the government, the initial government, start the government in his property and house. So the White House isn't called that because it's white. It's called that because the first government building before they built this was the Andrew White House, the Jesuit White House. So then the other story is 109 countries have kicked out the Jews, right? They've been kicked out of everywhere and thousands of times. So I went in and had a look at that. And in ancient times, they were expelled, but there's vague information in Rome in 139 BCE. They were kicked out among the other Chaldeans, except the Chaldeans isn't, it's a whole country. It's not a race of people. It's a geographic location. So all the Chaldeans were kicked out, the Jews and everyone else who was there, right? So they were all expelled, not them. And then the Jews in CE were kicked out of Italy if they would not, abandon their faith. So they were kicked out because of their faith, not because of what they were doing. Then you get the capture of Jerusalem by the Muslims. Jews were prohibited from entering that area, and the policy of expelling Jews was adopted by victorious Christianity from the 4th century, right? When the Vatican comes, they start kicking out Jews. In the implementation of its objectives to separate Jews from the rest of society and degrade and oppress Jews so that they would convert to Christianity. Are we starting to see a pattern here? Right.
And there are people, like, just to be clear, because like even within Catholicism or whatever you're going to call it, like the umbrella, there are people that have slaughtered and executed a lot of Christians as well, right? Like, so Holodomor, I've talked about that. Currently, what's going on in a few areas in the Middle East, where like against Christians, like that, there's a lot of like Christians getting murdered regularly, and so like it's not like so again, like this is nothing. This is religion and people's naivete to control populations and push propaganda and psyops against each other. So like we're seeing a lot of the same stuff happening now. It's not any different. Like this, like all this division, like even with like the political parties, like the religious groups, the like the skin color stuff that's going on as well, and now like this new trans movement and pronouns, like what we're calling woke on the left and right. This is all propaganda being pushed, and it's been happening now for thousands of years.
The phenomenon of expulsion is overwhelmingly found in Christian lands.
Why not?
But in most localities, like Germany, they were readmitted after a short while. Now, here's the part we don't hear. There were socioeconomic factors contributing to the hostility of Christian merchants, again, toward their Jewish rivals. And in Spain, the desire to isolate the new Christians from the Jewish influence was a factor in their expulsion. What they don't tell you is when these countries kicked all these Jews out, they'd give them safe passage, and then they would go out on the highways and murder and rob them and take all their goods. Right? That part just gets left out of the history books. So then I looked and said, well, who else is kicking them out? Well, the Arabs did expel the Jews from their countries and confiscated their assets. And it's because the Jews could charge usury. You could lend money on interest, and Christians were not allowed to do that, and neither were the Arabs. So they did get kicked out of those. And then in the 15th to 17th centuries, you can see the country in pink. These are who expelled the Jews. Well, it's Spain, where the Jesuits come from, and Rome, Italy, and Sicily, and Sardinia, right? So they kicked them out. Again, these are the Roman Catholics who did it. So then we look at the other thing, the Jewish Bolshevik takeover, right, of Russia, the Jewish extermination. So you look at the Bolshevist program, and then they put in the Council of the People's Commissar. These were the 17 people who ran the Soviet government after the Bolshevist takeover. Mm-hmm. Only one of the 17 was a Jew, Trotsky. 15 of the other ones were either Jesuit priests or Jesuit educated. So you're like, again, if the small hat people were behind this revolution, why didn't they put their people in? And then you look at, well, Lenin, he was the guy who ran the whole thing. So I looked at him. He was baptized. He was a devout member of the Russian Orthodox Catholic Church, his father. His mother was a Lutheran. So there's no tiny hat there. And on the other side, he had a Swedish Lutheran mother, and he did have a Russian Jewish father who converted to Christianity. So I don't know where that comes in. Then we got the Balfour, right? Arthur James Balfour. He's an earl. So again, he's a
Bolsheviks, by the way, leftists, communists.
Vassal of the Roman Church. Now he's the guy we all know, the Balfour Declaration. Rothschild, gets an agreement where after the war, this guy will give the Jews a place in Palestine, right, for the Jewish home, which is where we're seeing so much trouble. And that was called the Balfour Declaration. So this guy's really interesting because he opposed Irish home rule. He didn't want the Irish to have any home rule. So once again, they're after Ireland, saying there could be no halfway. And then he also is responsible for the Education Act of 1902 down here at the bottom, which had a major long-term impact, modernizing the school system in England and Wales, and provided financial support for schools operated by, drum roll please, the Church of England and the Catholic Church. So again, this guy has nothing to do with the small hat people. The Rothschilds are Jesuits. I won't get too further into that, but when you start looking at all the Rothschilds, they're always wearing the Knights Templar crosses, the Knights of Malta. They're supposed to be Jews, yet they're always wearing papal regalia, medals and insignia, the red shields. So as Jordan Maxwell was saying, they might have been the bankers for the Vatican. They're not Jews at all. They are what you could call fake Jews. Here's Santos Bonacci real quick.
The Rothschilds come from the Orsini family. Roth means red in German, and the Orsini means red bear, little red bears. That's what Orsini means. The Grey Pope is Pepe Orsini. He trumps the black, he trumps the white Pope.
The Grey Pope is even higher than the black and the white Pope.
The Orsini is the Maxima family. They are the maximum family. They are on top. And somehow they've trumped the Colonna and the Farnese, which I know without any doubt through all my studies that they are the three most powerful in the world.
What about Rothschild, Rockefeller?
Well, they are Orsini. They just changed their name. Rockefeller were Rothschild. Rothschild were Orsini. Orsini were family which have their bloodlines in Babylon and Egypt. They tell you that. You read
a lot of people.
This man controls the entire world. Many people know about the Pope, but what if he's not the only Pope? Rumor has it that there are 3 popes in existence. The White Pope, which everyone knows, the Black Pope, and the Grey Pope. each trumping each other in terms of power. The white pope is the leader of the Vatican Church, and the black pope is the leader of the Society of Jesuits. However, when it comes to the gray pope, it is a whole different story. Well, you see, the gray pope, or more commonly known as Pepe Orsini, is the latest heir from a long bloodline of black nobility that are the movers and shakers behind world control, with their dynasty going way back to even Babylonian times. Today, they are the world's most powerful family, heading the Illuminati, with even the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers reporting to them, but not many people make.
All right. How are we doing for time, guys? We got longer to go or what? Because
we're coming up probably about 15 minutes left.
Right. Yeah.
I know this is deep stuff, guys. And many haven't heard this before. Are you familiar with the lore of the eagle versus the serpent? Have you heard that?
Yeah. But go ahead and expound on it, because I see that you're making connections.
Well, it's just interesting. There's like an ancient battle supposedly happening between sort of a feud between those who are represented by the eagle and those represented by the serpent. So, you know, some say this goes to Enlil and Enlil, and it's a Sumerian sort of lore, but I don't really buy that. Some say it goes back to Atlantis, but it is interesting how there's a lot of symbology in the flags of nations, and of course everybody's very familiar with the image of the eagle with the, you know, clasping this.
Speaking about flags, like the funny thing too, like just like more like fun stuff with flat earth facts in Antarctica, like the only flag in the world that has like that shows like the shape, like this shows an actual the continent as part of the flag is Antarctica. It's literally this is in plain sight. Like you have to put it on the flag that it's Antarctica, you know, and at a continent, you know, in order to like make people believe it, right? Like, so like, it's like, this is totally a continent. It's on our flag. That's proof. There's your proof.
Serpent, right? And supposedly.
Anyway, I don't know what they're going to get into that, but I will leave it at that because I am like almost freaking 3 hours in and I still need to take my dogs out. Again, I already took them out a few times this morning, but like not on a good, nice, long, either a bike ride or a run walk, but either way it will be done. And so I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.